Universal Metaphysics, Saint Germain Brotherhood. Lesson 1. The level you are at, the level of consciousness. Each individual has a level of understanding and acceptance of certain truths. He believes some things and rejects others and does not admit them. This level of understanding and acceptance is the state of consciousness that has been formed little by little on the basis of experiences as a result of free will. The level of consciousness is like a stairway with many steps. All human beings on this planet are situated on one of those steps, higher or lower, and the level of understanding they have reached is their truth. In the spiritual aspect, there are many ways to reach inner evolution: philosophies, religions, esoteric schools. All these levels are good and necessary and must be respected. A metaphysician always behaves in an understanding and tolerant way and does not enter into discussions or polemics for religious or spiritual reasons. He does not censor anything, nor does he think he is better, more intelligent, wiser than others. It is important that you understand well the ladder and the level of consciousness that are the steps to live in peace with others and not be attacked by pride, by the spiritual pride that would make you despise what seems inferior to you. There is nothing inferior or superior in this sense, because they are internal levels that are overcome through greater understanding and personal effort. Metaphysics. The word metaphysics means beyond the physical, that is, beyond the material world and concrete realities. Metaphysics teaches truths that exist and are, but are not seen. However, in spite of being invisible, they produce certain results because from that invisible world comes the visible and is the cause of all that manifests. For example, energy is not in the engine that we see, but comes from the invisible, and yet it is accepted as a concrete reality. Many truths exist, but they cannot be seen or touched. Normally we believe and accept a series of invisible phenomena, such as electricity, magnetism, heat, life, love. All of these are not seen, just as the ideas that produce material forms are not seen. There are other realities besides those we see and touch. They are much more important and transcendental, and we must know them to free ourselves from many dangers, from difficulties very common in the world of the ignorant. The truth will set you free. Therefore, it is necessary to know and to know in order not to fall into unhappiness. Occultism. The spiritual teaching of esoteric type has been called occultism because in the past it had to remain hidden and accessible only to the most sincere seekers due to the persecutions so frequent due to ignorance and fanaticism. You will know that in this Aquarian age, occultism is already being disrupted by reason of progress itself. The avatar of the new age, the ascended master Saint Germain, has given orders that these truths no longer remain hidden, for there is no reason for the hidden in the age of light. Thus the instruction is given to all who wish to hear it without distinction, payment of money, occult initiations, or mysterious silences. The veil of mystery has fallen. There are no more mysteries, for all have the truth and all have the intelligence to understand. The metaphysical level at which you find yourself. Metaphysics has many expressions that are different levels of understanding and truth. All spiritual knowledge that has gone beyond the religious level is metaphysical. You know that there are serious and sincere schools of metaphysical type, such as the Rosicrucians, the Masons, the Gnostics, the Spiritualists, and now there is even the scientific level of parapsychology. All these metaphysical levels must be respected because they are necessary, since each person places himself according to his vibrational level and his understanding of the truth in the place that is most final for him to continue advancing. We, the metaphysicians who are here, belong to the Saint Germain Brotherhood, which is the highest spiritual level that the earth currently possesses, for having been projected directly by the Avar of the New Age, ascended Master Saint Germain, from the high spheres of light, through Connie Mendez and duly prepared channels. Faith in the invisible. To advance in the light, faith in both the visible and the invisible is necessary. However, the metaphysician is strengthened by the verification of results. Whoever remains in the teaching, with a mind full of skepticism and frequent doubts, will achieve nothing, because faith is needed to move mountains, as the Bible says. It will not be a blind faith, but based on knowledge and practice or verification of results. By the fruits ye shall know them. Everything is known by its fruits. Free yourself from suffering. You must know that no one was born to suffer, that God wants for all the most beautiful and glorious. But man has made a bad use of life. With his free will and his human will, he has missed the inner powers, the vital energy or holy energy. Because of this, the earth shows at present that appearance of confusion, imperfection, and chaos. It is necessary to change the thinking of the multitude, to cleanse the world of errors, mistakes, and false beliefs, so that the planet can move forward and occupy its rightful place in the cosmos. It is also very urgent to free the mind and life from suffering, to teach the multitudes to no longer accept it, and that it is not God's will that man live unhappily on earth. For this reason, the Ascended Masters impart the instruction that breaks the chains of limitations and definitely liberates life. The new thought must be generally accepted, for it is what is now urgently needed. Change cannot be imposed, but gently sought by each individual and accepted within himself. Dogmas and ostentatious rituals that impress from the outside are no longer necessary, for spiritual awakening and advancement in evolution go from the inside out and not from the outside in. Nothing changes on the outside if there has not first been a change on the inside. Among the basic liberating truths of suffering are the following. Everything is generated in the mind. Man creates his own destiny. The conditions of his life, his misfortunes, his joys, everything is his own work. God is not in the clouds, but in the heart of every human being. There are no sins, but mistakes that can be corrected. There is no eternal hell. You have to put your mind in positive if you want your life to improve and leave aside the old world of suffering, of limitation. Today is the day of a new beginning. Today is the renewal. Everything comes from the eternal present. Lesson 2. Instruction given by the Saint Germain Brotherhood. The Saint Germain Brotherhood is the spiritual level that you have now contacted. You should know that to reach this level, a high level of consciousness is required, for it contains the most superior instruction that the planet can give at this time. It is a direct teaching, projected from the planes of light by Saint Germain and all the ascended masters of the White Brotherhood. These masters are the spiritual rulers of the earth, and have been taking care of it for many centuries, because nothing can be or exist without a conscious direction or mandate. Among the ascended masters is the Master Jesus. They lived and existed physically on earth, which served them as a school to ascend to a higher level and pass to higher planes, as every human being must do, no matter how humble he may be now. The masters can no longer take material body or physical form by law of evolution, but they love and serve the earth from above. Saint Germain projected this teaching through Maria de la Concepción Méndez, Connie Méndez, who was born with this special mission and fulfilled it perfectly. She passed away on November 26, 1979 in the city of Miami. By free testamentary disposition, his remains were cremated and brought to Venezuela, because here is all his work that has also spread throughout the world. His books are widely known and circulated everywhere. She never tired of propagating and teaching these truths through lectures, conferences, and the media. She is also widely known as a composer, writer, cartoonist, painter, and in multiple facets of her rich personality. Now she continues to assist us from the planes of light. Connie moved away from occultism and put these truths in simple words within the reach of all, always recommending that they be continuously practiced in daily life, because without realization, there is no progress. Connie founded the Saint Germain Brotherhood, spiritually, in the year 1945 in the city of Caracas. Currently, the sisterhood continues to carry out an important spiritual work to prepare the planet for the change that is needed and to raise the level of the greatest number of people. The new stage of enlargement, renovation, and expansion is bearing magnificent fruits. Instruction is given free of charge through direct talks, lectures, bulletins, books, songs. The instructors or guides work impersonally, without profit and with total disinterest. There are no rites or ceremonies. It is a free and broad teaching that needs no formulas or requirements other than the free acceptance, the attendance of the students to the lectures. There are no inscriptions, payments of fees, or obligations of any kind. The economic collaboration in the service of the light or any other personal contribution is done on a voluntary basis. The Saint Germain Brotherhood respects all levels of consciousness and does not oppose anything. Among its rules is not to enter into polemics, nor to allow this attitude in the classes. The students are disciples of the light, which is out of any contact with spiritualism, witchcraft, or black magic. We do not act on a religious level. We are not a religion. The headquarters of the Brotherhood is in Caracas. The students of metaphysics, at this level, quickly elevate their state of consciousness, improve their life and their affairs, free themselves from illnesses, conflicts, and past mistakes, mainly by the constant practice of the law of mentalism, because everything is born in the mind and, in it, is generated. It is a practical teaching, although simple and of a high level. Individual change manifests as a consequence. To be a member of the Saint Germain Sisterhood, there are no requirements, as we have indicated. Nothing is obligatory. It is not necessary to register, to pay money for courses, to sign papers or documents, or to obtain a distinctive card. It is only necessary to feel, internally, interest in this teaching, and to attend regularly the lectures that are given freely and widely. The only commitment acquired is with your inner God, who has led you to this level. Although you may not know it, by the fact of going to the classes and showing your interest, you have committed yourself with your inner divinity to take care of your spiritual evolution in a determined and clear way. This is something very important and transcendental. Your higher self has waited too long to be able to lead you to a high level of truth and understanding, and to temper your will, so that you do not back down or give up on things. Willpower is needed, for there are many who fall short, and after contacting the classes are left behind for lack of attendance. The negligent ones don't get very far. Although there is no commitment, we make some suggestions to keep in mind. First, attend classes on time and do not skip classes. Being late is distracting to others and annoying. Organize yourself to be on time and not to be absent, because teaching is gradual. Absentees have gaps in understanding and difficulty making progress. Neglect cripples and derails any constructive work that has been done. Second, practice continuously the teaching in daily life. This is called realization. When knowledge is filed away and goes no further than intellectual understanding, very little is accomplished. This teaching requires effort and will, so that he who only understands things and goes no further advances very little. Third, do not let yourself be disturbed by interference. We warned you from the beginning about the interferences that the disciples of the light normally encounter. The negative polarity tries to get them out of the way and then presents them with difficulties so that they fix their attention on externals and forget the light. When a student has been interfered with, he usually does not realize it and thinks, "After I get out of this situation, I will go to the talks." Herein lies the error, for there are only two paths, the light or appearances. If you choose the light, you will see how easily the problems will be solved. But if you choose appearances, then they will become greater and greater by the very power of the attention held there, and you will never get out of your difficulties. Whenever a student realizes that he is being interfered with, he should mentally say, "Light first and then appearances." Go quietly to your classes, do the treatments, and you will see how the external things will give way until they disappear. You are the master of your world and should not allow yourself to be devoured by that which is outside. Lesson 3. We are what we think, and this is how you manifest it. Learn the art of living. One only has to look at life to realize how burdened and unhappy most human beings look in any place or city on earth. On the street, on the bus, in the office, or at work. Everywhere we find tense, hurried faces, with signs of worry and fear, with wrinkles of bitterness and dread, tired faces, with marks of despair and suffering. In this mosaic of faces, few are those that radiate joy, satisfaction, and hope. Humanity is unhappy because it has not learned the art of living, nor the way to overcome its difficulties, because it has fixed its attention on the bad and destructive, enlarging it, multiplying it, by this persistent fixation that increases its power and fills life with calamities. The art of living is not learned in any school or university on earth, although there are so many studies everywhere. Painful and difficult experiences serve generally for learning, but as the light of understanding about the right way to live is lacking, energy and life are misused, as well as the powers and faculties that man has, mainly thought, feeling, and speech. This misuse causes the human being to fall into bitterness and suffering, into numerous problems that could be avoided if learning were based on light and right knowledge. The planet we live on has been, until today, a world of atonement, where man comes to pay the debts he owes to life and to learn by experience. The Earth is a classroom of the cosmos, a school of the immense space, where certain lessons very necessary for individual evolution are learned. Up to the present time, and due to the wrong way of living, it has been a world of karma and suffering. But now, beginning the Aquarian age, the age of great light, all that has been dispensed. Infinite opportunities are given for each person to rise as far as possible, to free himself from his miserable life and reach higher levels. The projection of light given to the planet from above at the present time is extraordinary and amazing, as never before in any previous time. This happens because a stage has already been passed, a great cycle ends, and the Earth has to graduate, to ascend to a higher level, together with all the human beings that populate it. We belong to the family of planets of the solar system, and there is a general ascent. We have a delay of more than 5,000 years. They have waited too long for us, and now the cycle is closing. In these classes of metaphysics, we are going to learn the art of living, the correct use of energy, thought, and feeling, as well as all the other human faculties that have been given to man for his good and happiness. What is creative power? The Bible says that man is created in the image and likeness of God. This does not refer to the physical form, but to the powers and faculties that man inherits from God out of love, as his child. Man has all the powers of God, but in potentiality, and must develop them with his own effort. Nothing is given to him if he does not deserve it and does not make an effort to obtain it. The human being is like a sleeping seed, which has in potency the whole plant, with root, stem, leaf, flower, and fruit. But all this has to be developed in time with effort and perseverance. Just as the plant needs water to grow, man needs knowledge, experiences, and realization through self-effort. The greatest power that God has given to man is called the power of the word, a great creative force that is formed by thought, word, feeling, and action. With this power, the human being builds his own life, good or bad, and he has to learn to use well such wonderful tools. If he uses them badly, he will fall into conflict, suffering, and unhappiness. Man is creator and also captain of his own boat, for he directs and produces the conditions in which he lives, even if he does not know that he has such power. The individual is never a plaything of circumstances, but master and lord of all that surrounds him. Why does he not take what he has been given? Because he ignores it and does not make use of his power. He believes that what is outside is more powerful than himself. He gives himself up to deception in such a way that he becomes a slave and not a master, as he should be. The correct use of the word. The word is a powerful energy that comes from thought and goes out to create. It is also like a seal that marks everything it touches and gives it life. It is a two-edged sword, for it creates both good and evil and manifests them in life. Depending on how we speak, so will be the conditions around us, happy or unhappy, for each one is responsible and the sole creator of his own world. Nothing but oneself is to blame for everything that happens to him. When the word is used well, it brings wonderful results and pleasant conditions. The correct use consists in always speaking positively, suppressing all negative, destructive, or unpleasant expressions that cause harm to others or to oneself. Incorrect use of speech is the lack of control in speaking, saying negative things, hurtful words, criticizing, insulting, offending others, making fun of others, etc. Speech for speech's sake is very harmful. Saying anything without knowing what will come out causes many problems. Think, the word is a decree that is manifested outside and creates concrete realities, good or bad. You must learn to control the use of words so that only constructive, good things come out of your mouth and cause good to others. Do not fill your life with calamities and problems because you speak badly and do not control what you say. Mental power. The first law that governs creation is called the law of mentalism and says, all is mind. As you think, so you are. Where your mind is, there you are, and what you think, that is what you become. It is necessary to control the mental power, because it is the greatest power of the universe and, on its good use depends everything that happens to us in a positive way, but in its bad use, it results in a catastrophe. We all know how to think, and every time we think, we are creating. Thoughts are things that materialize on the outside. Thoughts and beliefs form concrete realities for happiness or misfortune, depending on how they are directed. If you misuse mental power because you ignore that you have it and do not know it, that does not justify anything or soften the condition that will come as a result. The mind is like a factory that is always in action, producing concrete things that go out and are projected outward. Learn the good use of the mind and you can succeed. Lesson 4. Thought and feeling are the basis of creative power. Thought and feeling are two powerful tools that constitute the basis of creative power. Everything in the world owes its origin to the combination of thought and feeling. Thought is the carrier of the mental pattern or image projected by the mind. When a thought is intense, around that image are grouped the atoms that constitute the material substance or form, and finally, the force of feeling gives life to the idea, turning it into concrete reality. There is nothing in the visible world that has not been thought and felt before being realized externally. It is very important to control feelings and keep them in harmony. Otherwise, uncontrolled energy will pass through them, producing disasters, destroying own and strangers. It is necessary to avoid feelings of anger, revenge and hatred, envy, selfishness, resentment, etc., because they greatly disturb one's own life and that of the people around us. Every negative feeling generates discomfort and destruction, produces separation due to lack of love. The feeling has the 90% in the manifestation, that is to say, it carries the greater potential of energy to give reality to the things, good or bad. Thought materializes ideas because it is a dynamic energy that has the power to materialize things and conditions. Work, love, marriage, good success or failure in business, physical appearance of people, state of health or illness, economic and social life, etc. All these situations have passed through the mind before becoming reality and have been thought, conceived, accepted in this life or in some of the previous ones. If you do not believe a thing and do not accept it, it can never manifest in your personal world. As you think, you will be and live. Your concepts and beliefs about yourself and others have created all that you are and live. You must know that you have the power and you must know how to use it for good, constructively. From now on, you can start building a better life, succeed in whatever you want, with the good use of mental power. Thoughts are the cause of everything that exists and conditions are the concrete effects or realities in physical life. Tomorrow we will be what we think and believe ourselves to be today. Each one constructs his own world by means of mind and feeling. The creative mental power is like the bow and arrow because it goes straight to its target. The mind, bow, sends the energy, arrow or thought. This arrow is shot at the target, materialization and manifestation, by means of the power in the propelling hand, feeling, which has the greatest force for the ultimate result. When we think, there emanates from us a magnetic current similar to a ray of light which can powerfully influence others and reaches great distances without limits of extent or place. Much influence is exerted on people by the thoughts of others, especially if they are projected with great force, capable of overcoming any resistance that opposes the receiving mind to which they are destined. This applies to convince others, but, if they are forced, in this way brings karma to the person who projects them for violating free will. Thoughts are our children, our creations, and fulfill the purpose for which they were created. Positive and negative thoughts. Good and bad thoughts are of different tonality. Positive thoughts have a clear and diaphanous color. A person who thinks and acts positively radiates peace, harmony, his aura is clear, and his vibrations are luminous. He is pleasant to deal with and attracts others by his sympathy, surrounding himself with everything he likes. Negative thoughts are dark and dense. They go from mind to mind, increasing their energy, increasing their power, and thus creating monstrous entities floating in the atmosphere, such as hatred, war, materialism, and revenge. People who have the habit of thinking negatively are unfriendly, unpleasant, and inspire fear, distrust, due to the vibrations emanating from them. Also, by affinity, they attract what is equal to them and live in that atmosphere of discomfort. Both positive and negative thoughts return to their creator due to the law of the circle and, in a multiplied form, for having adhered to the energy of related thoughts that found their way. So it is not convenient to think bad, feel, or speak bad, as this returns to its origin, creating serious difficulties. Mental and emotional control. The self-control of thoughts, feelings, and words is something very necessary and urgent in today's world in order not to continue generating destruction and imbalance or poisoning the world more than it is. The individual must make an effort to get out of his unhappy condition and rise above the lower level of the masses. This can only be accomplished by conscious self-control of thought and feeling, by disciplining the human ego, which is the outer consciousness. No one can remove limitation, misery, or discord from his life until he subdues his thoughts and feelings. This discipline of self-control requires continuous effort, because 95% of human thoughts run free and uncontrolled. It is worth all the effort and time spent in order to change, in a positive way, one's own life. Human limitation and shortage of money, for example, have their origin in very old negative habits of thinking and feeling, which are not easy to eliminate because of the length of time they have prevailed. The same is true of health difficulties and problems of various kinds. If there is no harmony and peace in the feelings, nothing good is produced in the life of man. To harmonize your feelings, you must be quiet, and this is not easy, because people's temperament is emotional and impulsive, and they explode for anything. Emotional control means control of energy, which should be released only for what is constructive, good, and happy. Self-correction of human weaknesses, vices, and passions is very necessary for spiritual advancement. Only through the correction of the human self can mastery and well-being be achieved in daily life. The outer self, personality, must learn to obey the dictates of the higher self within you, inner God. But by the law of free will, you decide who rules in your life, the lower self, personality, or the higher self, divine presence. Lesson 5. Emotional self-correction is the basis of tranquility. Emotional self-correction is not easy, for the agitation of the senses creates raging rebellions that make unmanageable the divine energy by which one lives and moves. Every individual on earth is free to look towards the light or to decide for the pleasures of the senses, materialism, and the sensory world with its dazzling pleasures and appearances. The easier path is the satisfaction of the passions, for it needs no conscious effort or self-correction. It is urgently necessary to correct all habits of thinking, feeling, and speaking. Self-control is the basis of well-being and success. The individual should not allow his attention to be captured by disturbing external things and should be on guard. No longer accept the negative, reject it. Do not let it enter your world and poison it. In everything you do, there is a release of energy. Energy is waiting for expression like an avalanche. If left unchecked, it will rush in, causing many problems and conflicts. That happens with emotions that are not controlled. They produce destruction. Feelings of irritation, discord, selfishness, anger, hatred, and revenge are very disturbing. Keep all quarrels and fights away from you. Yield no more to external provocations. You must remain at peace. Mental control, thinking, is as important as emotional control, feelings. No longer accept thoughts of discord, hatred, or fear, or anything negative or wrong, and open your mind to new thoughts that are positive and happy. As you widen your mental field, you will overcome your limitations and problems. Your life will improve, for everything begins in the mind and therein it is generated. First, there must be knowledge, then acceptance of truth, practical realization. To greater knowledge, corresponds greater breadth of consciousness and greater overcoming. Practical realization of this instruction, mental control. During this week, reject all negative suggestions from others. Do not quarrel or argue. Do not enter into controversy. Silently, if you hear something that bothers you, say this decree: "This is not right. It does not interest me. I do not accept it. I reject it and forget it. I dissolve it and consume it by the power of light." Another decree: "Only the perfection of God comes from me. I allow nothing but right, good, harmonious and constructive thoughts and words. I reject all that is inferior and disturbing. I open my mind, as of today, to the new thought, word control." This last decree refers to the thoughts that come from one's own mind, which is badly accustomed to look at what is bad and what is not convenient. It is necessary to discipline the mind so that it changes its polarity and directs attention only to what is good, right and pleasant. To have faith in what is bad, to look at it continuously and to repeat comments about it, is not good. Connie Mendez says in one of her books, "Think the good and it will be given to you." Because as you think, you attract to your personal world that which has been fixed in your attention, that you believe it, comment on it with others, and talk about it. Of course, if you think the bad thing, it is also given to you, and in the same way you attract it into your life with all the consequences. Emotional control, decree. I always keep myself in a calm and cheerful attitude, no matter what happens. I live in peace, and I am at peace. I control my emotions. Exercise of mental emotional self-control to calm down and relax. First of all, you must learn to quiet yourself mentally, feelingly, and physically with the body. This is commonly called relaxation. It is not easy at first because thoughts and feelings are uncontrollable. The body shows some tension in some parts, such as the forehead, shoulders, lower jaw, and thighs. We do not recommend common relaxation, concentrating minutely on the body, from head to toe, as it takes too much time and is not necessary. The following is sufficient. Sit in a comfortable position and with a straight back. It is best not to lean against the back of the chair or lie down, as you may fall asleep. Also, this is the correct position to take advantage of the extra energy flowing through the crown chakra at the top of the head. Before sitting, it is necessary to choose a comfortable, clean and pleasant place, which has enough light. It is not recommended to be in the dark to concentrate better, because it is not convenient. Ventilation and light-colored walls. Let the light protect you. Visualize and feel the body enveloped in radiant white light. Decree: I am the light of God that protects me from everything that is not perfect. Take several deep rhythmic breaths. It can be 3, 7, 9, or as many as you wish. We must think that it is not only oxygen that we breathe, but also that powerful force called divine breath, holy breath, which gives us life and which is contained in the air. Remain silent, observe and give orders to your body. Be still in silence. Observe your body, look at it to see which part is tense. Then command your tensed muscles to quiet. Free yourself. I am the peace and balance in me. My whole physical body is at peace, relaxed, rested and in perfect harmony. I practice silence because in the silence of the inner being is the truth. Do not think about anything. After having relaxed, try to leave the mind blank for a short time. That is, do not think about anything. This will cost you because the problems and concerns crowd the mind. Do not want to obey. Everything requires technique and perseverance. As a point of reference, you can concentrate on your heart to feel its heartbeat. Think of the heart as the temple not made with hands, and God is there. This exercise can take you about 20 minutes a day. It is good to start with 5 or 10 minutes until you extend the time as long as you want. If you practice the exercise twice a day, you will get better results. When you feel very hot, it is better not to worry, because it is the discharge of energy that we have mentioned. Do not expect phenomena or hear voices or strange things. You are simply practicing silence and concentrating inward, where God is. Lesson 6. I look at my present, the eternal present. Many problems and anxieties are caused by uncontrolled thinking, when one dwells on reliving unpleasant things of the past or is tormented by an uncertain future. Life is not enjoyed, and opportunities are missed because of this mental habit of living out of the present, which is the now in which we are living, the today of each day that happens over and over again, forging links in an endless, unbroken chain. The correct way to live should be to enjoy today, to experience today all the experiences and good things that life offers, because today, the eternal present, constitutes the greatest wealth of the human being, and in it are the tools to form the future. Today is all we have, and that future, which does not yet exist, depends on how we live today. Triumph or failure results from the way we live today. Today we build what tomorrow will bring us, and yesterday is dead. It no longer exists. Therefore, it is not even interesting to remember it. In whatever activity you do, try to focus your thought on now and try to perform this task as best as possible. Do not worry about tomorrow or relive what has already happened. It is a waste of time. The bad habit of reliving the past. As the human being lives in the present and has nothing else, it is not fortunate to remember past things, be they unfortunate or happy, for the following reason. When they are good and pleasant, remembering them brings a certain melancholy, nostalgia, and sadness, a certain longing, because those experiences can no longer be enjoyed. If there are misfortunes and unhappiness behind, the memory relives with force those situations, causing suffering and unhappiness. Where you put your attention, it grows, energizes, and increases. When you comment and remember unpleasant events, they take strength again and burst into your current life, creating difficulties. Do not let your mind go back to the past and steal your peace. It happens then something like when you clean a carpet well, but then the little dog brings bones, garbage from the garden, depositing them on top of it. One cannot allow that, nor can one allow one's present life to be soiled with dead, sad, and unhappy things from the past. One must discipline oneself mentally and emotionally to do away with the bad habits of commenting on and remembering what happened. Instead, you must invoke the law of forgiveness and the violet flamme to dissolve, to consume all the undesirable things that happened in your life. Sorrows, traumas, and difficulties, painful memories are useless. To give too much importance to personal problems and sorrows is pride and selfishness. Commenting, repeating, and remembering a painful past attracts negative forces that bother a lot, but that generally damage the head after those conversations, complaining and complaining. The habit of complaining is very harmful, creates bad environment, and leads to what they call bad luck. Whoever has the habit of falling into lamentations, recriminations, and complaints never lives happily. He attracts, continuously, black forces, unfortunate conditions, and even falls, easily, in diseases. This happens because such words carry the germ of resentment. The resentful person is never happy. It is necessary to free oneself from memories by ignoring them and not paying attention to them. Blaming others, life, governments, or politics is useless and breeds resentment. Complaints and lamentations about how hard life is, what it has cost one to get ahead, the irresponsibility of others, and the like, lead to personal failure. The habit of dramatizing. It is another bad habit that should be eliminated, that exaggerated way of increasing the negative facts. The one who dramatizes always sees the bad, points it out, and gives it such magnitude that it ends up bothering everyone enormously. The dramatic ones are pessimistic, fearful, and live tormented. They are annoying to others, and therefore avoid dealing with them. Dramatics cause serious problems in social, family, and work life. Generalizations also give rise to a dramatic habit of crowds who fixate on an isolated event, highlight it with full dramatic intensity, and generalize it. There are many popular sayings, such as, "All men are scoundrels," "There is no money for anything," "You can't live," "The atmosphere is polluted," and others. Dramatics are sad, insecure, and rather lonely people. Accumulated sadness forms a very heavy load of energy that weighs life down, comes and goes like a rubber ball, causing discomfort all around. Do not torment yourself with the future. This creates unhappiness and leads to missed opportunities to enjoy life normally. The root of this mental attitude is fear and personal insecurity, lack of spiritual fulfillment from not knowing the divine presence I am, our Almighty Father, who always assists us. If he is not invoked, he will never respond, so that only limitations and sufferings, discomforts and difficulties in living remain. Thus people live in fear of the future. Those who buy grave plots in advance seek old age pensions. Those who save too much, depriving themselves in the present of the most fundamental things they need. But this does not mean that one cannot think of the future. This is good when it is done with serenity and peace, without burdens or self-imposed limitations. It may seem irresponsible to live in the present, but it is not. If faith has not been developed, this practice does not work. Faith in the God of our heart who can do all things. Lesson 7. We were born to succeed. We were not born to suffer. God has not created us to be the plaything of circumstances. Our destiny is not to suffer or endure pain for the sake of it, because life is like a school for people of common spiritual evolution and a university for the most restless, in the search for essential values, understanding, and wisdom. There is a certain truth. We all come to learn in this school of the cosmos, that is the planet Earth, and nothing of what happens to us is due to chance because there is no chance but causality. According to what we learn in our daily lives, we will raise our level of consciousness, which is understanding, the ability to see beyond the limitations imposed by ourselves, and based on difficult experiences, we will awaken spiritually, ceasing to be sleeping men and women. It is not true that we have to resign ourselves to pain and suffering with the passivity imposed by religions and the absurd belief that God wants it. No. What God wants is our happiness, our health and joy, that we prosper and live happily, that we progress more and more. The negative and sad side is put by man himself through ignorance and error. It is common to live in the ignorance that leads to the greatest calamities, and in the face of misfortune without wisdom, there is no choice but to resign oneself. But that is not God's will. Wherever you are now, whatever your conditions of life, get up and look up. That is your destiny, the one God gave you to reach for the stars. In the today, there is the beginning, and the eternal present can generate everything, because being the eternal time for all, it has no limit. We only have to reach more and more to reach the perfection of being and exist in the unlimited, infinite time. Learn this truth. We are not born to suffer. Everything can be improved, regenerated, and changed. Just as the tissues of the flesh regenerate quickly before any medical treatment and health comes, in the same way, every human being has an immense capacity for regeneration at any time and place in his life that he desires. Intends and intends, since God is his heart, divine presence and divine energy, he is the greatest power in the universe to achieve anything, no matter what it is. Know the truth, and it will set you free. So work with that truth, make it your own, elevate your will, elevate your eyes, and you will no longer be a sleeping, defeated man. You know that I am in you and I am, for many millennia, is the name of God. The why of problems and difficulties. As long as we live in this world, we all have problems and situations that bother us, because we are on the path of perfection of being, which is the glorious destiny, and, as long as we do not adjust to the divine plan of perfection, imposed on the whole cosmos, suffering will come as a result. No one can conform to the divine plan or rise above the lower without sufficient wisdom or knowledge of the eternal truths, which are the engine toward the perfection to which all are entitled. Therefore, says a well-known spiritual principle, know the truth, and it shall set you free. Free from what? From every discomfort, difficulty, or problem. Problems are like valuable tools of perfection, because oneself, on the basis of personal effort, is the sculptor who shapes his own image and models his destiny for good or evil. Nothing comes by chance or by God's punishment. Lie. Everything comes to be regenerated, if it is negative, or to strengthen and rejoice, if it is positive, mainly so that you overcome it based on wisdom and experience. Nothing grows without self-effort. Even plants develop in this way. They too are living beings striving towards the perfection of being and existence. Moreover, Nothing is given to us, because everything must be personally conquered with your own effort and the help of the God of your heart. Problems are also your own work. You have a choice. There is a sacred law respected throughout the cosmos which is called free will. It allows us to choose what we wish and want to do. It does not exclude the evil inclination, nor does it give wisdom for anything. It doesn't even tell anyone that it exists, so people can go wherever they want, even if it means falling into abysses. You are free to make of your life what you want, for better or for worse. That is your sovereign right, and no one and nothing can stop you. Free will allows us to live our lives according to our wishes. We can choose among the circumstances that present themselves, but we must be very careful and alert in living. We must make good use of the life energy and the powers given to us, and we have to give an account of it before the karma court, at the end of this material existence. It is very important that we take care of our thoughts, feelings, and words, because we already know that, as you think, feel, and speak, so will be what you have, possess, and enjoy. You are not a toy of destiny. Everyone is free to create their own conditions of life. We are captains of our own ship, and not the plaything of a blind force that takes us from here to there. What happens is that many times, and out of ignorance, we go about creating that destiny happily, in a crazy and irresponsible way. In the same way, we sow our life with calamities and misfortunes, without even knowing that we have the tools in our hands. We form terrible karmas that we will have to pay in future lives, but there is always time to fix things, and fix them in the eternity of life, place where we can do it. No one is a drop of water pushed by the waves without goal or path, for that drop of water is part of the immense sea and has all the living powers of the Father God. You are not a leaf drifting in the wind. Inside, there is the power. You have the power, use it. But not unconsciously, but in a good and constructive way. Misuse of power breeds disaster. Good use of power brings good and joy. Lesson 8. The body is the vehicle of my spirit. Perfect tool. The divine and immortal being in eternal time needs to express himself on the physical plane for the purpose of evolving and acquiring experiences. For this reason, he needs a body which is the perfect instrument for his purposes. This instrument is the body of flesh, which, by its very density, has very little awareness of the higher spiritual. Such a useful instrument has been created with everything necessary for this dimension: head to think, hands to do, feet to walk, eyes to see, heart to feel. Nothing is missing in this marvelous machine moved by the divine enera that is life. It is well adjusted and resists strong, powerful, to all setbacks. Like any tool and machinery destined to any use, the body needs to be well treated, to be cared for, fed, and kept clean. Bad treatment, excess, and carelessness destroy it and lead to its deterioration, to its disintegration, to that which they call death. Overindulgence spoils it and fills it with undesirable habits. It is necessary to make good use of this instrument, for we will have to give an account of it when we pass before the karmic tribunal. The body also needs to be refined, educated, improved, so that it may be effective and achieve the best ends. The physical form is like the garment that covers and envelops the thinking being, for the consciousness, supreme light, is always within it. Just as on earth no one can go out into the street naked, so also the eternal entity has to be clothed in order to manifest in the proper form. This dress, when it is old, dirty, and worn out by misuse, is discarded, and the supreme energy, infinite intelligence, abandons the garment of flesh because it is no longer useful or usable. Then it goes to other higher dimensions to continue living, and people, on earth, believe that the individual has died, which is not the truth at all. It is a mistake to cry over the grave in the cemeteries and go there with sorrow and pain to believe that the loved ones are under the earth. There lies only a useless garment that is gradually disintegrating. The eternal entity is gone. It is like a car or vehicle, for it serves as transportation from one place to another. We all need to move and change our environment, for nothing is static. Because of its very density and heaviness, the body cannot fly on earth and has to walk slowly, so it was endowed with legs and feet. The supreme intelligent energy, which is the thinking being, uses it to move, but it is not the only vehicle at its disposal. but has other vehicles at its disposal to visit different planes during the night's sleep, in moments of meditation, and when the inevitable death comes. Just as a traveler never stays in one country, the eternal consciousness or entity likes to visit other places near and far. This is allowed by the Father God. While on earth, it only knows and feels that it has one body, the fleshly garment, but in truth, it can dispose of three more: the exercised body, which gives it energy, the emotional body, with which it feels, and the mental body, with which it thinks. It also has three spiritual vehicles at its disposal for higher purposes. In total, there are 7 vehicles of man which we call bodies, and each one fulfills a determined function. On Earth, there is not only one vehicle for transportation purposes, since we have automobiles, motorcycles, bicycles, buses, airplanes, trains, helicopters, ships, and others. In the immense cosmos, there are also many forms of travel. Man, a citizen of space, cannot be denied any opportunity, as long as he conquers it and deserves it. It is like a house because it serves as a dwelling for the being that inhabits it and uses this dwelling for its purposes. But houses can be well or badly used, badly or well cared for, which leads to their preservation or deterioration. Sick and imperfect bodies are like old and badly cared for houses that little by little come to an end. Healthy bodies, which radiate health, are like tidy and clean houses whose inhabitants live in them happily, joyfully fulfilling the laws of God. Is like a child. That is why it needs education, discipline, praise, appreciation, attention, and love. Nothing is more obedient or more disciplined than the physical body, according to the way it is treated. The complacencies that are had with it, the bad habits allowed, the mistakes and abuses that are committed with it. A bad habit is the result of wrong imposition or excessive indulgence. First, one insists too much and the body rejects, because in it is the wisdom of what is right. But when the person insists too much and the body diminishes its resistance due to this insistence and pressure, then it accepts and performs things already as a routine that is difficult to remove. You should know that the physical body is the most obedient of the 7 and the one that submits the most to the will of man for good or for evil. Temple of the living God. As the body is a temple, it must be respected, revered and cared for as such. It should be clean and kept in the best condition. It is not good to work the body with indignities, just as one should not enter a temple with an unclean mind or wicked purposes. No one should debase the body with low passions or with quarrels, controversies or discord, for this is the same as filling one's own house with garbage, or opening the door of the home to drunkards, crooks and undesirable persons. Do not overwork your body. Do not overwork it. 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 Do not produce illnesses, because this engenders karmic debts that you will have to pay in future lives. For example, he who does not take care of his body weakens it with bad practices, with food limitations and so on, disturbing its correct functioning. In the next life he will present himself with diseases. The practice of sport, when it exhausts the body too much and leaves it exhausted, does not go with the laws of God. Practice sport moderately, without excesses or abuses of energy. It is necessary to take proper care of the body and make proper use of it. Lesson 9. All that is negative is transmuted. To transmute means to change an inferior conviction into a superior one, to transform, to liquidate the old and imperfect, in order to return to life its positive condition, which is good and perfection. For example, health is the transmutation of disease, wealth is the transmutation of poverty, wisdom is the transmutation of ignorance, as beauty is the transmutation of ugliness. Everything negative can be transformed into positive. Transmutation becomes divine alchemy and constitutes a powerful purification activity that establishes the necessary balance to free life from all that is imperfect and disturbing, generated by the human mind, individually and collectively. All the errors coming from the past, which have brought problems and conflicts to the present, must be transmuted. All that is imperfect can be dissolved by means of the transmutation activities contained in the flame of the violet consumer. This powerful dissolving energy has been projected to Earth by the ascended Master Saint Germain, from the octave of light to free our planet from unhappiness and suffering. We can use it for our well-being and advancement. Purification is necessary at the individual and collective level. If humanity wants to survive in the future and fit into the great cosmic law of harmony and perfection, it must dissolve the imperfect it has created and purify the earth of so many horrors. All that departs from that cosmic law in the persistent form is destroyed by the principles of cause and effect, karma, for it does not conform to the plan of perfection established throughout the cosmos. Master Saint Germain represents the activity of purification. As avatar of the New Age, it is incumbent upon him to rule the destinies of the earth for the next 2,000 years. For this reason, he has given life to the powerful violet energy that can be easily invoked to produce amazing results. It consumes all that is inferior to purity and perfection, dissolves discord, all errors and limitations, burns and disrupts evil. Without the use of the violet flame, no one can obtain liberation on this planet or put an end to the successive wheel of incarnations. The violet flame is invisible to physical eyes and acts like electricity from the fourth dimension. It can be seen by some seers. Transmutation signifies hope and upliftment for the present world. It is like fire that consumes all that comes in contact with it and produces immediate results. Transmutation decree. In the name of God, I invoke the mighty violet purifying and consuming flame. Envelop myself in the radiation of this energy and allow the great power to begin to transmute my life into good and perfection. I invoke the law of forgiveness for all the mistakes I have made in the past and in the present. I give thanks. The blessing decrees that blessings, praises, and graces increase and precipitate what is desired or needed. Just as the Master Jesus blessed 5 loaves of bread and fed 5,000 people because his awareness of good was enormous, so bless everything you want to see increased. I bless the good in this situation, and I want to see it manifested. Everything contains the negative and the positive. By blessing the good, you increase the positive, and by wanting to see it, it manifests. Bless means good to say, to speak positive, to speak well. Everything that is blessed grows, increases, and multiplies. If it is something that is wrong, it is fixed. Blessing generates powerful, high-frequency energy, just as cursing produces a very destructive and disturbing black energy. We must give thanks and bless everything we have, because in this way it will increase and produce greater benefits for us. Blessing money returns more money and increased material well-being. Blessing the family produces harmony and well-being. Everything contains good. Before any unpleasant situation, do not be sad or in a bad mood. Think that everything happens for good and that there is a hidden good. If something does not happen, in spite of having asked for it and having tried to get it, it is because it does not happen. Do not force circumstances so that things happen by the effort of external will, because then what will come out will not be good. Everything contains good, and in all that is imperfect, qualified as evil, there is a hidden good, waiting to manifest. That can be blessed. Money, health, family, friends, home, truth, work. Do not bless people, but their divine being. Bless not the sick, but the health that is in him. Bless not the thief, but his divine being and the honesty manifested in his person. Affirmations. In the event of any problem or contrary, I bless the good in this situation, and I want to see it manifested. When I receive money, divine love through me bless and multiply this money, so that in my hands it multiplies, and in the hands of the one who gave it to me. In any negative situation that may occur, I do not accept it for me or them. I invoke here the good, bless it and wait for it. If something against our desires occurs, I bless this situation and the hidden good here. I know that everything always happens for the good, and that what is given is for the good and what is not given is because it is not convenient. I reject the negative. I do not accept anything that is not manifested. Good. Everything that is bad in my life has to disappear. I do not accept any confusing situation that is not understood. I bless in this situation the good it contains. I know that everything contains the good. Lesson 10. Effort is my way of overcoming. The first law of creation, law of mentalism, is so important that he who does not know and practice it does not advance a step on the spiritual path and stagnates in his progress, no matter how much he advances in instruction in a sincere manner. Without the continuous practice of this law, students waste their time. Comments and criticisms. It is somewhat surprising to see at times how interested and good students, who appear to be of great spiritual advancement, use the wrong word and use the wrong energy in this particular. For any unimportant thing, they take the rags to the sun, to their best friend, and begin this criticism of defects, of negative things that they see in him, that we already know that they are not the truth but only an appearance of imperfection that manifests the human part, inferior I. Each one, in his inner self, is perfect, because his Christ, divine self, is perfect. The appearance fades away with the breath of truth, and truth deliver us from all the lower that is disturbing when we do not give it power and do not even see the negative. It is a matter of focus. Attention goes where we want to take it, and there it is fixed, to produce results in good or bad. Negative comments are the source of many problems and heartaches because they reinforce the bad, aggravate the situation, separate people, and create many difficulties. They form a black smoke that clouds and poisons the atmosphere. Therefore, students who do not realize the law of mentalism do not progress and do not free their lives from difficulties. When comments are wrapped up in criticism, gossip, and censure of others in a bring-and-take fashion, they cause a lot of damage. It is like a high-powered bomb that is hidden out there and no one knows when it will explode. For this reason, cut off negative comments instantly and don't let anyone else do it around you. Rose-colored glasses. Unity must be maintained at all levels. This is important for a metaphysician, whether he or she is going to consider the nuclear family, friendships, work, social, etc. Where there is unity, good and perfection is manifested. But if disunity comes, separation immediately follows, and a breach is opened to the effluvium, negative polarity, which destroys and disturbs everything. A family whose members remain united resists any trial or difficulty, however serious it may be, and emerges triumphant. Inseparable friends are invincible. Only love unites. What keeps the union strong is the powerful and victorious energy of love. When a person loves someone, he does not see his defects, but if he begins to notice the imperfect conditions of his character, and even more, if he comments on them, division comes at once. The friendship or courtship ends. The family separates and all are against each other. Therefore, if you are interested in preserving the harmony of your family, your friends, or your beloved boyfriend, we advise you to do the following. Put on rose-colored glasses with imagination to see only the good in each person, because you know, as soon as you start looking at the bad, you energize it, you attract it, and you put a barrier, a wall, a gap opens, and friendship, affection, love are over. Also, the effluvia can come into action to disturb. We all have defects. This is what they say out there. Yes, but you know that this is not the truth, for those things that disturb are only appearances, which vanish only with the breath of truth that frees us from problems and makes us harmonious, happy. When you begin to see defects in others, problems will begin in your life and in the lives of others. It is the harvest of the sowing, and it is the law because you have slipped, without realizing it, towards the negative pole, and thus you allow it. When one looks at the defect of another person and also discusses it with others, criticizes it, he is not helping that person in any way, but on the contrary, he is harming him because he sends him a negative mental energy that sticks to the defect, so to speak, increasing its size and thickness. Because of this circumstance, people who are often criticized find it very difficult to get out of the bad and accommodate. Always see the good and perfection in everything. This is an important spiritual rule that produces very good results, rests the mind and relieves life. He who always looks at the good, no matter what appearances the eyes show, has the sowing of tomorrow quite prepared and positively disposed, but it is necessary to be always alert, because the eyes insist on always looking at what is bad, what is not convenient and does not harmonize. It is an old habit. Look at the good and it will be given to you, says Connie Mendez, because you attract it and bring it into your world with precision, sooner or later. In the same way, if you only look at the bad, you also attract it immediately and, so to speak, it sticks to you, magnified and all. Attention is like a magnifying glass, which, when fixed on the bushes in the field, concentrates there with great power the rays of the sun and then produces a fire. Everything we examine with a magnifying glass appears large. The same thing happens when you put your attention on the defects of others and on the negative things that are not convenient. You energize them, increase them, and produce a quite disturbing manifestation. Control the power of your attention and don't let it go, wherever it goes. You know, attention is a great power, and you have to make good use of this faculty. It is always possible to rectify. The Master Jesus says, "Do not let yourselves be afflicted by apparent stumbling blocks, and do not let yourselves be attacked by the effluvia. You are the soldiers of the new age. Be on your feet, on permanent guard." You must realize that when you form the momentum in the group, everything is transmuted. You come out of the talks brand new, but if you walk away, the effluvium comes and tries to disturb you. When you make a mistake, you can always rectify and correct the mistake. Lesson 11. Resentment is stagnation. It creates unhappiness. Resentment is a very unhappy condition, more so for the one who generates it than for others outside the situation, because by the law of the circle, whatever one radiates, whatever one engraves within oneself, is projected outward, makes its way by feeding on kindred thoughts, and then returns, multiplied, to the consciousness of its creator, poisoning its abode, which is the mind and the body temple. No one who holds a grudge in his heart against another person, condition, or place can live calmly, in peace. It saddens, it extinguishes joy, it takes away the enthusiasm for living and ends up making one sick, because suddenly a surprising ailment arises that has not been able to be controlled. It is known that resentment makes life bitter, old, and sick. Inside, it forms like a hornet's nest that at any moment will manifest itself on the outside and in an unpleasant way. All resentment must be transmuted. All resentment against persons, conditions, or things which has been engraved in the interior must be transmuted promptly, because no one can progress spiritually with resentment in the heart. This paralyzes, stagnates, and it is for the following reason. Resentment is a lesser form of hatred, and in it there is an absolute lack of love, as well as a critical and condemning mental attitude. All those who judge negatively do so for lack of understanding, tolerance, and love. When a hornet's nest forms, there is danger, because these insects get in everywhere, invade the home, and attack surprisingly, creating difficulties. No one has control over a hornet's nest and its consequences, unless it is totally exterminated. So it is with resentment. It must be removed from the root, which can only be achieved with a good transmutation treatment. There are certain cases in which resentful people have become rich and live with certain material comforts, but inwardly they are bitter, unsatisfied, and their spiritual life has not flourished. Light cannot express itself well when we allow a room to be filled with black smoke that is imprinted on the walls and dulls everything. We metaphysicians have to look inward, not apologize for anything, and, with decision, if we know that there is resentment there, immediately transfer it. We have to cleanse the mind, the heart, and the body of those things. Let us not pretend to advance in a path of light if we do not finish all the resentments that live inside. It must be a firm, determined, and tenacious work until the cause, the nucleus, the record, and the memory of such conditions are done away with. Whoever wants to accommodate his life, let him eliminate all rancor from his heart and transmute, with violet fire, all hidden resentment. Otherwise, and even if he gets money, his life will become a disaster, and above all, it is necessary to understand and forgive. Forgive also himself, and all that needs our forgiveness. Egregores of resentment. There are enormous egregores of resentment and rancor filling the atmosphere because they are accumulated human creations that go from mind to mind. But this should not worry at all a metaphysician who knows the laws and is trained. If he keeps his feelings at peace, his mind clear, and does not put himself in vibratory affinity with the lower, he has nothing to fear and will always be safe. Grudge against life, things and conditions. Many people blame life for their unhappiness and lack of luck. There are also those who believe that the city, the country where they live, is to blame for their mediocrity or for the fact that they have not been able to progress. Others blame work, bosses and colleagues who hate or envy them, and it is even possible to blame objects, material things, for personal misfortunes. This mental attitude is a serious mistake. It does not solve anything and always makes things worse. It is necessary to understand that only oneself is the only one to blame for one's own problems and difficulties because of one's mistakes, false concepts and beliefs, wrong mental position. It is difficult for people who act like this to prosper because deep in their heart there is a feeling of resentment that poisons their life. Every individual should be grateful to life for the many opportunities and blessings it gives them. Resentment against life, blaming it for some unhappy condition, constitutes a grave violation of the law and always creates a karmic situation. There will never be happiness for individuals who think like this. Life should be blessed continually, for it is a precious gift and is never to blame for anyone's misfortune or unhappiness. Nature purifies itself. Both the egregores of rancor, as well as any negative human creation, leaving the mind of their creator, go into the atmosphere. Nature, being charged by the imperfect, returns that charge to its source in a normal process of purification. Such is the cause of earthquakes, cyclones, volcanic eruptions, and other processes described as destructive catastrophes. Nature tends to wash those impurities and return them to the place where they come from. It is like taking a bath or cleaning the house every time it gets dirty. No one wants to remain dirty because they feel annoyed. In this way, nature is purified, removing the contamination of discordant human thoughts and feelings and returning to its condition of divine purity. In the same way, resentment only harms the one who feels it and never the one who is the object of it. It is not at all desirable to hold any resentment in the heart. Lesson 12. The divine order manifests love. If you love anything, set it free. If it returns to you, it is yours. If it does not return, it was never yours. What is love? Undoubtedly, love is a sublime feeling, an emotion that is born within and leads to giving. Metaphysically, it is also a pure and disinterested energy that drives to offer, to serve, to procure the happiness of others without any interest or reward. Love encompasses many fields or aspects and is not limited, exclusively, to the relationship of a couple, which is what is commonly understood as love. What in this world we consider love is but the external and superficial edge of that sublime principle that every human being has to reach in its totality, and not only in one or several facets such as family, marriage, friendship, passionate devotion to some branch of knowledge, art, or science. Love of life with all its creatures, including its inanimate aspect, constitutes a broader and fuller facet of love. Once this is fully realized, there is no longer any reason to remain on the physical plane or to reincarnate here. Ascension to higher levels is then obtained. True love must be devoid of selfishness, possessive eagerness, legal impositions and traps, ties and shackles that enslave selfish passions, for in this I give to you and you give to me, there is much self-interest. Sex and passions stain human love and strip it of its sublime condition. When there are low passions and instinct of hoarding, possessive love destroys. The root of love is freedom, because it is a generous and free feeling. It can never grow or live in the oppression of a possessive urge. Those who try to possess others because they consider them their property say they love them and believe they love them, but in reality they have not even learned to love. At the bottom of them there is a disguised selfishness at work. That is why they impose conditions and make others suffer. They often say, I am doing it for your sake. It is the best thing for you, but they only do it for their own good. If you want to destroy something, try to monopolize it, and you will see how it goes out little by little, like a candle that burns out in silence. When you cut a rose, place it in the palm of your hand, and then close your fingers to imprison it. By wanting to possess it in this way, you inevitably destroy it. but the thorns will also stick in your hand. The same happens with the one who tries to possess others. He generates in them a certain rebelliousness that can explode violently at any moment. People who are prisoners of the will of others live sad, unhappy, bitter lives, even if they have achieved a certain resignation. They are like the prisoner behind bars and will try to escape at the slightest opportunity, leaving the oppressor alone since the submission they manifest is forced. This fate awaits jealous husbands, domineering parents, exclusivist friends. In the end, they are abandoned when the capacity for endurance, fearful respect, or the limit of tolerance is exhausted. Every violation of the law engenders suffering. That is why we say, if you love someone, be it your son, your girlfriend, your wife, a friend, etc., set him free. Only love can live and grow without ties or limitations, without the chain of selfishness. Don't impose your will on others. Don't tell them what to do or how to behave. Do not forbid them things beyond the right limits. Take care of and protect your love, but do not dominate it with an iron fist if you do not want to lose it. To keep your love, you must respect the will and the way of being of others, their tastes and ideals. Do not belittle anyone if you think you are better. Remember that no one is humanly perfect and that freedom is a gift from God. Thus, we are all born with that sacred right to think, be and act called free will. No one has the right to violate this sacred law. We must understand that love without freedom is not even love. Let others grow and live as is their right. The hell of jealousy. Jealousy is a subtle form of selfishness and a hell because it engenders much suffering, for in it there is absolute lack of love. Jealousy derives from fear combined with selfishness, doubt, and insecurity. Therefore, it is accompanied by suspicion and discord. Jealous people think they love a lot, but they do not even know how to love. Jealousy poisons the atmosphere and makes it unbreathable. Jealous people torment and chain the loved one to the limit of what is bearable. In the end, they deserve to be left alone and learn to love truly through hard experiences. A metaphysician can do a lot for those who live trapped in this unhappy condition by applying the right treatments and putting light into the darkness. Let go and let go. This is the key. When you let go of something and get it out of your mind, without selfishness or indifference, you give it freedom to breathe and live in its own way, and wonders happen. For example, a young woman's boyfriend feels unhappy and overwhelmed because she is always demanding attention from him, telling him how beautiful she is, etc. That boyfriend will run away and never come back. In such a case, we say, do not torment yourself for his lack of love, because if he comes back to you, he is yours, and if he does not come back, he never was. No one takes away another's boyfriend or wife. There are deep reasons in these cases that are not seen. Firstly, one of you wants it and allows it. Secondly, the one who left was a bird of passage that should not be in your life. Everyone goes their own way. There are just laws and everything is in divine order, although it may seem otherwise. Love for all creation. Love is not a limited and exclusive feeling, because it extends widely to everything created. It is a great nonsense to think that love is only the harassment of falling in love between the partner and the physical sensation. One can love many things: life, money, work, entertainment, art, music, power, homeland, a cat, a dog, a friend. What they call love between partners is a mixture of sensation and possessive passion. It will not persist if it focuses only on bodily attractiveness, because what endures is the union of souls, not bodies. Everything created deserves love and respect. Animals, plants, human beings without distinction of race or color. Reverence for life is a sacred law. The color of love is pink and radiates from the heart, from where its strength and power, threefold flame, springs. Lesson 13. Transmute fear. The great enemy of the human race is fear. The less fear, the more health and harmony you will have. The more fear there is, the more calamity will enter your life. The only real problem of mankind is to get rid of fear. When you do not fear a situation, it cannot affect you. Of course, remember, There is often fear in the subconscious without being aware of it. The best proof that you are no longer afraid with respect to some special situation is the joy, the feeling of bliss that you experience with respect to it. A great thing to remember is that fear is an imposter. Tear off its mask and see how it crumbles. Some years ago in Holland, a curious thing happened. A lion escaped from a traveling circus. A short distance away, a nice woman was sewing by the open window. Suddenly, the animal jumped out of the window, rushed past her like lightning, ran down the hallway and into a closet under the staircase. The astonished woman thought it was a donkey. Outraged at the marshy tracks the animal had left on her gleaming floors, she went in search of it and found it stuffed in the closet among her brooms and mops. She then proceeded to beat it with broomsticks. The lion, trembling with terror, crawled into the back of the closet, and the woman, enraged, redoubled her blows. At that moment, 4 men arrived armed with rifles, chainmail, etc., and captured the lion, who meekly surrendered, delighted to escape from that terrible woman. When the good woman learned that it was a lion she had been beating, she fainted and was ill for several days. This anecdote perfectly illustrates the demoralizing power of fear. The good woman was completely dominant while believing the animal to be a donkey, and when she treated the lion as a donkey, the lion believed her to be very powerful. Therefore, she was terrified of it. Once the woman discovered her mistake, the old racial belief of fear came back to her, and, although she was now completely safe, she continued to react according to racial tradition. Break the fear in you. Concentrate all your effort on this, and all other things will take care of themselves. The treatment against fear is to realize the presence of God in you and the invaluable and powerful love of the Father, who always protects you from all evil or danger if you call him into action. This must be a reality for you. Love neutralizes fear and puts an end to it. The Bible says, "In love there is no fear, for perfect love leaves fear away," because fear brings error and attracts trouble into your life. Fear a thing and you will see it manifest, because you give it power and draw it strongly into your world. He who fears has not realized love, says the Bible, John 4:18. And we metaphysicians add to this, fear attracts what you fear. If you are afraid of being robbed, you will be robbed, and whatever you are afraid of will fall upon you. This law is like a magnet. No one can avoid it. The best remedy is to stop fearing. Overcome fear, for it is not good for you to be afraid. Lesson 14. Transmute remorse. When one has to make a decision, one has to do everything possible at that moment to do one's duty. If, later on, it turns out that one has made a mistake, he is not to blame, for no one knows how to do more than he can do at the right time. The wisest man in the world could not do more than he understands and believes he can do. Therefore, to remember past mistakes that were made in good faith is foolishness. Such inner remorse takes away peace and causes much inner harm. Any fool can foresee what is going to happen if he reflects and examines what is happening, but it is difficult to achieve a wise foresight. But what matters is to do the best that one believes and is capable of doing. We give you this advice. It is good for you to do things the best you can, taking all circumstances into account, and then do not worry about anything. Students of metaphysics, of course, always ask for light from their divine presence before making a critical decision. They ask the inner Christ to guide them not to make any mistake. Then, the outcome will be favorable if you let your intuition guide you. You must firmly believe in what you ask or claim, because without the faith that moves mountains, no reality will manifest in your daily life. Living with remembrance for something is a hard load that saddens, ages people, darkens the days, and breaks the harmony in the being. When someone does something wrong and causes suffering to others, a serious remorse remains inside, aggravated more and more, because things have no solution and cannot be rectified. But everything always has a solution. If you have entered metaphysics at this level, and you already know the truth about this situation of remorse, dissolve it, because it is of no use to you. Forgive and forget. Call violet with that past that is already gone. Erase the mistake in sequence, but if there is no guilt in your way of acting, it will be of great relief to think that, at that time then, you did the best you knew and could. the best that your level of consciousness, your understanding and your evolution gives you. In any circumstance that may lead you to remorse, don't allow it. Do not keep reminding yourself that you did wrong and that you could have done better. Then there is no rectification possible. Things done are left behind and forgotten. Soothe your conscience by saying to yourself, I did the best I could and suffered according to my level at that time. I am ending this matter. I liquidate and open a new and better account. Lesson 15. Success is the goal in my life. Success consists in mastering difficulties. All who have succeeded in any way have done so by overcoming difficulties. Where there are no pitfalls to overcome, anyone can succeed, and that cannot be called success. There was a time when establishing a telegraph line from New York to Boston presented many difficulties. Later it was done very easily, but then to get the transatlantic cable laid was a great feat because of the difficulties that had to be overcome. Subsequently, these problems were also solved. There are no personal situations, however serious they may seem, that cannot be overcome by calm, persistent spiritual treatment and appropriate action. If you have a stumbling block that seems to stand in the way of success, do not accept it. Exploit that stumbling block and use it for your success. The great writer H.G. Wells had to quit a low-paying job due to poor health, forcing him to stay home and devote his time to writing books that made him a world-famous author. Edison became post-deaf and decided that this would allow him to concentrate better on his inventions. Theodore Roosevelt was a sickly child and was told he had to live in seclusion and take care of himself. He was also very nearsighted and nervous. Instead of accepting these recommendations, he worked hard to develop his body and became the famous strongman who became President of the United States. Gilibert wrote a zarzuela called Pinafore when he was bedridden with agonizing pains. The owner of a famous London fashion house was the wife of a poor salesman attacked with tuberculosis. She had never been in business and had no qualifications when faced with the problem of supporting her husband and 2 children. She had no capital, only good taste in clothes and faith in prayer. Today, she is a rich and famous woman. I thought, I wish I could sell the kind of dresses I had never been able to buy. Whatever your difficulty or stumbling block, make the most of it. It always seems that the problem itself is the hardest thing of all. But spiritual treatment and courageous determination can overcome everything. Problems are the signposts that point the way to God. Be dynamic. What is a dynamic person? Many would like to be considered dynamic, but it seems that they do not have a clear idea of what this expression means. Many believe that to be dynamic is to behave aggressively, loudly, or pompously. For others, it seems to be more about attracting attention in some way so that you get noticed and stand out. In reality, none of the above is anywhere near the truth. A dynamic person is one who does something to change the world and people, or who does something to change himself. The magnitude of his work may not be great, but it is a fact that the world is a little different because this individual has lived and acted in it. That is what being a dynamic person is all about. Those who are dynamic always do something to change the world and people. We say, and this is demonstrated by the example of many famous people who managed to change the lives and destinies of thousands of human beings, and their works are known to all. Such is the case of Emperor Napoleon, Washington, St. Paul, Bolivar, and others. There are also many men and women whose works are hardly known, and yet, on their scale, they are dynamic, because they have changed the world in a small way. If you manage to do something, however big or small, you are dynamic and you contribute to making the world different because you have lived in it. If you only appear to do something, talk about it, move here and there, and do not do the fundamental thing, which is to change others or yourself, then you are not really dynamic, but act like a role player and with little conviction. He is dynamic who does something in a new and better way. He who makes 2 grains of wheat grow where only 1 grew before. He who succeeds in raising a company that serves the public or finds employment for others. He is dynamic who produces a useful invention, who composes good music, good poetry, paints beautiful pictures. The doctor who cures, the teacher who teaches are dynamic. They all leave the world a little different from the way they found it. Washington changed the course of history, and you can change the life of a single person by healing them, teaching them, or simply inspiring them to do what they most desire. The essential thing is to have transformed the previous image, what was there before. There are people who are satisfied with what they are, and they like to pretend. For that reason, they spend their energies in that which is seen on the outside and is of little use in reality. They adopt impostured attitudes and talk in vain about great things they have done or plan to do, so they consider themselves to be very dynamic. The truth is that the opposite is true. The secret of being dynamic is to believe that God does all things through you, however great or small they may be. You must put your talents and abilities at His service in the most sincere and practical way you can to be, in this way, as dynamic as you need to be. If you put this system into practice, even for a short time, you will be amazed at the amazing results, and you will see that you truly become a dynamic person. To serve well is to live and be in the truth. By their fruits ye shall know them. Lesson 16. My heart is the temple of God, the traditional concept of God. After the disappearance of glorious past civilizations, such as Atlantis, Lemuria, and the land of Mu, which had reached a high degree of realization of the one God, the peoples of the earth fell into a great ignorance and backwardness that persisted for many centuries. One of the forms, gradually overcome, was idolatry, the belief in many gods represented by means of idols, sometimes monstrous and grotesque. Later came the religious concept, still accepted today, of a dictatorial and just God, always determined to punish the sinful creatures of this world. They placed him in a distant place in space, vaguely called heaven, and represented him as a kindly old man, but somewhat arbitrary, because sometimes he fell into furious rages when things did not please him, and other times he was extremely complacent, indulgent. The religious continue to speak to their devotees of the fear of God, of the wrath of God, and the faithful agree that one must fear God. Therefore, one must behave well precisely because of this fear. In order not to fall into the wrath of God, one must avoid misbehaving. This belief was deeply rooted, especially in the past. Thus, centuries passed in the misunderstanding of the truth and in the acceptance of such absurdities as the wrath of God. What nonsense! Can God, a perfect being, all love and wisdom, have any anger? As for punishing the aforementioned sinners, not at all, because a perfect being, all love, can never punish his children, and even more knowing that they are entities in primary evolution, therefore with many defects yet to be overcome. We metaphysicians know that it is the spiritual laws that, apparently, punish, if at all, to adjust everything to the divine order, although mainly to allow each person to learn the lesson by himself and rectify his conduct. Let us not blame anyone for sowing in the minds this concept of the justiciary God seated in the clouds, because humanity has to pass, normally, through states of consciousness and levels, each time higher and higher of comprehension. The beings of the Piscean age could not give more of themselves in their interpretation of the Holy Scriptures. Modernly, the Aquarian age puts the light into consciousness, and the understanding of God is becoming more in accord with the truth. Beloved Master Saint Germain, avatar of the New Age and spiritual director of the world for the next 2,000 years, has taught humanity the existence of the magical I Am Presence, or God within, that dwells in man's own heart. This causes the individual consciousness to center inward and not outward, as it has been doing, and produces wonderful results. At last, man comes to know his Father and to know that he does indeed exist. Placing God in a distant place has serious consequences for individual evolution, for it shifts the focus, diverts attention to the external, which distracts, stops in its tracks, and delays the normal process in the conscious awakening of the God within. Numerous names have been given to this unique God who came after idolatry, more than 70. Among the best known are Allah and Jehovah. What is God to you? Those who are atheists do not believe that God exists, nor do they believe in anything spiritual. Those who are not atheists have adopted, mentally and emotionally, some form of God, understanding him in their own way. What is God for you? Do you believe in that kindly old man who has his palace in the clouds? Does God seem to you to be an energy, a blind and impersonal force? In this case, it will be something cold, mechanical, and unfeeling. Do you believe that God is an abstract principle, an idea to be accepted religiously? Whatever your concept of God is, we respect it, because it shows the spiritual step you have reached and the internal level of understanding that corresponds to you for the moment. As evolution always pushes you to go higher and higher, it is logical that you do not stay there, but keep on investigating. We, the metaphysicians of the Saint Germain Brotherhood, no longer believe in a blind faith, but in a reasoned and logical faith, deeply felt. We know, by direct instruction from the ascended masters, that God dwells in the very heart of man and must be sought there. We know that there is an inner divinity, a personal God or divine master, and he, all love, infinite wisdom, unlimited power, is something like that guardian angel of which the religions speak, for he takes care of us from long ago in the eternity of the centuries, until we have grown up enough to be able to fend for ourselves. For now, he gives us life as flowing energy that penetrates through the top of the head, crown chakra, and anchors in the heart. He gives us all the powers and faculties we have, and equally, as many opportunities and experiences as we need. God is love. He never ever punishes his son, who is the evolving earth creature, my God and our God. A millenary concept, deeply rooted in the individual subconscious, is that of my God. We all know internally that there exists, in every human being, an individualized presence, inner God, divine master, whom we can call upon to assist us in times of need and danger. Then we cry out, "My God, help me." If this concept of our God had really taken root when we suffer and need help, we would say this, "Our God, help me." However, it does not occur to anyone to cry out to our God, but to my God. Why? We know inwardly this truth, for we have lived many lives, and therefore the knowledge learned then comes out at any opportunity spontaneously. There is, however, an our God, a powerful cosmic entity in its masculine-feminine aspect, for God truth is father and mother at the same time. This divinity dwells in the great central sun. It is the ruling intelligence of all the systems or worlds that are under its command and authority. The divine presence I am, the inner teacher or inner God of every human being, bears the name of divine presence, for he is in each person as energy in manifestation, power and light. I am, for a metaphysician, is the name of God and means I am in you and I express through you as energy, intelligence and love. Set no other gods before me, says the Bible, because I am in you. The phrase I am was translated into the Hebrew language as Jehovah, and its pronunciation is quite similar to I am. The divine presence is also our Father and is identified with the Christ who dwells in the heart of man, being one with the Christ in unity, power and glory. It happens something like in the following example. A king, very busy in his high affairs, delegates his prime minister to fulfill specific tasks at the popular level where he cannot reach because of his high hierarchy. But both the king and the minister work in perfect unity. They are one for the affairs of government, and in everything they are in agreement. The divine presence, our individual Father, is almighty, for nothing is impossible to him. His love for the incarnated Son on this plane knows no limits and gives him all his powers and attributes. Only man has to make an effort and earn, by himself, the privileges. Then, when he makes an effort and invokes his divine presence in action, all his difficulties, all his appearances disappear and perfection is manifested. The divine presence has to be consciously invoked or called upon for the law to allow it to act, and this happens for reasons of free will. Every human being has an individualized presence, but if he does not know it and does not invoke it to action by means of a conscious call, the divine presence will never act. Even if his son falls into serious difficulties and sufferings, it is the law. Ask, and ye shall receive, says the Bible. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. He who neither asks nor knocks receives nothing. The Master Jesus said, I by myself can do nothing. The Father in me does his works. In these words it is clearly manifested that man is only an instrument, since the Father is the one who has all power. We must learn to obey. The human being has to render a service of obedience to the supreme inner power in order to elevate himself and advance spiritually, for it is the love of the Father who provides him with all his needs, protects and shelters him in dangers, gives him intelligence to understand and love to forgive. In order that man may achieve mastery over outer conditions and acquire in inheritance the powers of the Father, he must first learn to obey with his human part or lower self in order to manifest on earth the model of perfection which is needed and for which he came to be born. Obedience to the inner God must be self-sustained with firmness and sincerity until the shell of the human self breaks, and he knows that he has no more power than what the Father gives him. Then he decides to serve his inner master, for whom he lives and breathes. How and when to obey? Whenever good, constructive impulses come to the mind, to the heart, for all that is beautiful and perfect comes from the presence. All that is destructive, conflicting, and negative comes from the lower self, which is the human personality, which is always puffed up with vanity and believes that it knows everything, that it is sufficient unto itself. To follow the impulses of the heart, and not always the reasoning of the intellect, is also to obey. The hunches are victorious and very good. Conscious contact. Likewise, one must keep in conscious contact with the Father in order to acquire strength, wisdom, health, inspiration at the right moments. This is very well achieved by following the frequent practice of contemplation and also through meditation. It requires consciously worshipping the supreme source of life and showing gratitude for the gifts received. A self-sufficient life stream is the human being, for he receives energy constantly from his divine I Am presence. This energy descends and flows without interruption. It is a ray of golden light that penetrates through the head and anchors in the heart. It is under man's control, though he does not even know it. The powerful vital current, poured out every second, we are using it at all times, awake or asleep. Only when man misuses the energy, the power, and has so deteriorated his body temple that it becomes useless, the divine presence withdraws the vital current from the physical body, and the latter becomes isolated, and thus disintegrates, dies. In reality, the only thing that dies in the human being is the body, because the energy always continues to flow in the other vehicles that man possesses. Life continues on higher planes. The creative phrase, I am, has tremendous power, because it commands the energy to act in good or evil, in positive or negative. For this reason, great care must be taken in speaking and thinking. I am decrees are extremely powerful. After receiving the energy through the crown chakra, top of the head, man qualifies it into I am mentally through concepts, ideas, and words. Immediately, the energy acts to fulfill the order, because the human being is a creator, whether he knows it or not. The mental order is always obeyed. Therefore, be careful what you say and think. Do not order things that become calamities for you by the mere fact of speaking. Do not let your thoughts go unchecked, for it does not suit you. After thinking and saying, the energy always rushes to carry out the command. Positive decrees are a blessing, but negative decrees destroy and cause suffering, conflicts, and numerous problems. When you say, I am, you open the door to all that is beautiful and perfect. But if you say, I am not, you close the door and shut out all hope. Man has the power to order, and this is called the power of the verb, all given. The personal or human self has absolutely nothing belonging to it, for it comes into the world even without clothes. Nothing he has is on loan from the great Master Presence, his Father, and it matters not that he misuses the gifts of life. There is only one source of all good, and that is the individualized presence. We must accept the wonderful power of the presence so that we may grow and free ourselves from all misfortune, calamity, or misfortune. Recognition and acceptance of the divine presence. Each morning and evening relax, center yourself in your heart, and, after being at peace, make the following decree. I recognize, accept, and bless the fullness of the mighty, omnipotent presence of God, I am, of the radiant Christ, and call it into action today, to manifest all the truth, beauty, and perfection that are in my divine plan. beloved presence of God in me. I joyfully accept and receive the wonderful flowing, regenerating and vital power, which comes ceaselessly through my physical body to manifest perfect health. I still my feelings, keep my human being under control, to receive now all the power of light. Thank you. Lesson 17. The right way to pass the tests. The right mental and emotional attitude. Various negative conditions prevent the student from passing the test well and lead to failure in the examinations. These conditions are created by the student himself, by accepting certain external situations, words and sayings of other people and giving them power, and thus he is already predisposed to the bad that will inevitably manifest itself. A. Fear of failure. If you go to the exam with fear or fear of failure, you have already failed, because fear attracts what you fear. You have to go to an exam sure of succeeding and determined to do it. When a student lacks time to study everything and has not been able to finish the subject due to some personal circumstance, he should forget it and think that everything is fine. He will invoke his divine presence to action, will give him the order, and will always hope for the best with full conviction. Inquiety and insecurity have a powerful influence on the bad success of an examination. This opens a door to evil, for just as fear is faith in evil, so personal insecurity attracts defeat. We already know that faith does not consist only in having firm religious convictions, because there is another type of faith that is more practical, and that is to believe in oneself, to be sure of one's own knowledge, to feel that everything is going to turn out well as expected. Fear and insecurity block the mind, which goes blank when the student is tense, worried, afraid of failure. That is why, even if he has studied hard, sometimes it happens that ideas do not flow and everything seems to have been forgotten. The student must calm down, raise his vibrations, concentrate on his divine presence, invoke it, and then let himself go. Mental emotional peace and inner security or self-conviction are indispensable. When a student is blocked and does not remember anything during the exam, something unique happens afterwards. Once the exam is over, and after having calmed down, the student raises his vibrations normally again, comes out of the tense environment, and remembers what he had forgotten, what he had failed to answer or was wrongly focused. But it is already too late. C. The negative vibration of some teachers. If the exam is written, it generally carries a negative vibration from the teacher in the following sense. When preparing the exam, he/she looks for what he/she considers most difficult for the student, the point in which the student has not been interested. As the student is in a state of restlessness and fear, he lowers his vibration. Add to this what the teacher brings to the table, and the ground is already paved for failure. Although this is true in some cases, do not think badly of the teacher or rate him negatively. Don't fixate on his faults if he has any. Bless the teacher and ask for perfection to be manifested in him. If he seems unpleasant to you, it is because you are projecting antipathy to him by speaking ill of him. Wrap him in the mantle of understanding and peace. In this way and in a short time, you will have a friend, a collaborator. He who sees the good and perfection in others, it will be returned to him. But if he looks at the bad, comments on it, feels it and thinks about it, the bad will come to him, disturbing his life and his environment. Think the good, and it will be given to you, says Connie Mendez. But if you look at the bad in others, it will come back to you, multiplied. It is the law. Success and failure depend on oneself and are not caused by external conditions. This is a metaphysical principle. One should not blame others, nor the environment, nor circumstances, nor anything external, for individual problems and difficulties, because no one but oneself is the cause of everything that happens to him on a personal, family, or environmental level. He who is calm and at peace receives peace, but he who is fearful and anxious, because he expects evil, takes it and attracts it into his world. No one can avoid it. D. Laziness and zero irresponsibility. Passing an exam does not mean laziness and irresponsibility. Whoever proceeds in this way does not comply with the law and does not do well, because he has not made an effort to do his best. It is necessary to take responsibility and study first, so that things go as they should. E. Do not lend yourself to chulitas, tricks and cheats. This does not work either. The student who expects good success must be clean in mind and heart, and not compromise with what is not right. F. Keep your mind positive is very important, and do not allow, not even for a second, the slightest thought that you are going to fail. That the exam is difficult and you will not know how to answer. Erase all that from your thoughts, from your speech, and do not feel it at all. G. Recognize the divine presence and invoking it in action, in yourself, in the teacher, and in all the students. This loving Father in everyone will see to it that everything goes well. H. Thanksgiving. Don't forget to give thanks before and after the exam. A grateful person deserves all honors and distinctions. Thank you, Father, for you have listened to me and all is well. Treatment given by beloved Master Kutumi. Before going to the exam, the student will calm down to be prepared and at peace. Eliminate all thoughts of fear and trust yourself. Think that all will be well and do this. Treatment. Beloved presence of God in me and in the Master. I love you. I acknowledge you. I bless you. I call you to action to manifest perfection during the examination. I remain serene, at peace, and I decree that all will go very well. I wrap myself in the mantle of truth and project this truth to the teacher, to all students taking this exam. I am the victorious achievement and perfect realization. I ask beloved Master Saint Germain to radiate the violet ray to envelop this test, every negative particle contained in this situation. May that negative energy, if any, be converted into positive, back to the great cause and then return to the Master, converted into wisdom and understanding for all. I complete this treatment with the pink flame of divine love that harmonizes and uplifts. I ask you, mighty presence, to project light and wisdom to the cells of my brain that are charged with this responsibility. May they awaken and accept to fulfill their service well. Thank you, Father, for you have heard me and this test is passed. When students enter class to take the test, they should remind themselves that they are there to pass it with flying colors and that their divine presence is in control of the situation. I am the victorious achievement in harmony with all and for all. Lesson 18. We are all students. The Earth is a school of the cosmos. In fact, the Earth is a classroom, a lecture hall, where we all must learn to pass examinations normally. The universe has infinite classrooms of knowledge and practical learning, and they are each of the worlds or stars that populate it. Of course, the stars are not in the firmament just to shine above, in that limitless space called sky, so blue and beautiful when we see it at night. For some, this planet is the elementary school classroom, for here they learn elementary and basic lessons as they live. Others study on this plane something akin to high school, and a few are at a higher level, such as college. Life on Earth is not by chance, nor is it the product of a blind and inexorable force, for all life is carefully programmed by high spiritual hierarchies and by the being to be born, who gives his consent and accepts the conditions through which he must pass, whether good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. No one is born if he/she does not have all his/her papers in order, precise documentation with ID, place of birth, profession or work to which he/she is going to dedicate himself, herself and everything else. This being true, no one is born by chance, by the whim of what they call destiny, because destiny is formed by oneself according to one's will and the law of free will. One comes to this world for several reasons. First, he is at this level of evolution, and this is the class that normally corresponds to him. Second, he decides for himself and requests permission from the karmic tribunal to be born or reincarnate on the physical plane. If the request is granted, he must accept the debts that belong to him and be born to pay them. These debts are mistakes made in past lives for wrong behaviors that have caused harm to others or to oneself. In addition to paying these debts, the person who incarnates has to learn practical lessons based on experience, correct defects, and develop qualities, raise more and more his mental emotional level, because the human being is in a process of continuous evolution and must always go forward. Evolution is a law that governs the entire cosmos. The so-called problems. The difficulties of life are examinations or tests that each person has to pass in order to overcome stages, higher and higher grades, and, in the end, to graduate to the level of Superman. When there is no more to learn on this planet, no longer feels attachment to the material, is able to overcome selfishness and realize love for all creation, the ascension takes place and definitely leaves this world, taking with him his matter or dense body transformed into light. He will no longer be born as a baby of this life. The wheel of reincarnations ends for him, but he continues to live in higher levels and in higher dimensions. The ascension of the consciousness and of the physical body was performed publicly by the Master Jesus in the hills of Bethania before about 40 people almost 2,000 years ago, to give us the example that we all must follow. "What I do, you can do, and greater things still," he said. "I am the way, the truth, and the life. Follow me." Ascension is not the exclusive privilege of the Master Jesus, but a law, a process in the graduation of being. Sooner or later, everyone must graduate, undergo initiation, and leave the planet forever. Reincarnating in the dense world again and again is not the only thing to do. There comes a day for every human being when that ends. Just as the one who graduates from a university degree reaches the level of a doctor and improves his economic condition, his life and his environment, in the same way the one who has passed well all his tests and exams in life also receives the prize of a prodigious change and a better promotion. The so-called problems are tests to overcome, practical initiations, examinations to pass from one grade to another. While going through these experiences, the individual does not realize the importance of this because no one has told him or warned him that it is a test on a personal evolutionary level. If he were to know this, he would try to pay more attention to it, more care, and possibly pass the test well. Lesson 19. Contemplation entering into silence. We have already indicated that contemplation is a brief but very effective form of prayer. It quiets the mind, calms the emotions, relaxes the physical body, and brings one into contact with the highest in each one, which is the supreme source of all wisdom and power, the Father or Divine Presence, I Am. If we consider that the Divine Presence is energy in action, it is always in us and with us. But also the Magna Presence is love and intelligence, will to do, power to perform, and all the attributes, all the qualities that the human being has, which are loving donations of the Supreme Presence, where the great power of God is, because the Presence is God Himself individualized in each human being. Although the Divine Presence is always with us as flowing energy, intelligence, love and power in the normal form called life, although this is so, it is necessary to make a conscious contact in order to acquire greater gifts, more strength, health, enlightenment that leads to success and a healthy way of living. Man without inner light is like a blind man who constantly stumbles over walls, furniture, and often falls into holes in the road. By the law of life, if one does not strive of one's own free will and does not accept to be guided by the higher spiritual, one will not achieve greater things. Let us imagine a very large water reservoir which supplies cities with the liquid element. When the communication gate is almost closed and the pipes clogged, very little water can reach the citizens for their daily use, for their needs. This is a defective form that must be corrected. The same thing happens if the pipes are clogged. Barely a trickle of water comes with difficulty. But when the plumber is called and those pipes are cleaned, the current flows abundantly without interruption, and everything is greatly improved. So it is with the human being. The channels of communication with the supreme power of the Presence, his Father, giver of all that he needs, are obstructed, and hardly any of the life current necessary for the normal functions of being and existing, holy breath, reaches him. This happens because man is covered, penetrated, by certain inner garments or bodies which are his instruments and allow him to think, to feel. Such inner garments or bodies are very neglected and dirty, and therefore constitute a serious obstruction to the help, irradiation, and protection of the Divine Presence. The human being has to make a conscious effort to cleanse these channels. Then he has to recognize his Supreme Father, accept him, bless him, and thank him for all the gifts that have allowed him to be, to exist throughout so many centuries. Contemplation is a spiritual practice that allows to make that conscious contact with the Supreme Father and the magical power that will free the individual, little by little, from all his limitations and sufferings. Other advantages of contemplation are the following: greater health, cellular renewal, and improved physical appearance due to the extra energy that arrives, coming from above, given by the Father, and flowing more abundantly by opening the floodgates. This energy usually manifests itself in the form of warmth throughout the body, a certain tingling sensation in the top of the head, crown chakra, and tingling in the palm of the hands, and it will not be difficult to receive energy. During contemplation, it erases all thought needs, speech and even problems, and difficulties of the mind, for contact with the divine presence gives enlightenment and clarity on all matters. Contemplation gives peace and balance. Whoever practices contemplation frequently is generally calm, calms his emotions, does not get depressed or despair easily, and becomes a magnet of irradiation towards other people. But the most important and transcendent aspect of contemplation is the awakening of the inner Christ that dwells in the heart, an inner divinity that is dormant and in a lethargic state in most people. This Christ is not the Jesus Christ of which the religions speak, although he is the Son of the Holy Trinity and is in every human being, because we are all three in one, and in all there is a Trinity. When the Christ awakens, the person grows and feels different, because he develops his inner spiritual part, acquires control over himself, strength and wisdom. A person with only the seed of the Christ undeveloped is like a beast of the field, wild in his instincts, without control in his emotions or wisdom in his thoughts. He wastes his time only in eating, sleeping, working routinely, watching television, and occupying himself with the thousand superficial things that fill the existence of so many unconscious human beings. The true value which makes man grow is the awakening of the inner Christ, the inner master full of wisdom and power to illuminate, bless, and prosper the man who is the person incarnated in the dense plane. The Christ is united to the divine presence, which is the Father or first person of the Trinity, by means of the supreme energy. The two are one in power and glory, but man without Christ is a poor savage lost in the jungle, an ignorant child constantly mistaken, while man with Christ is the greatest being in creation. The beloved Master Saint Germain says, "Whoever practices contemplation and strives consciously to awaken his Christ by making him grow, that person passes under my custody and care, becomes one of my legionaries, and is often assisted by me." Lesson 20. Your mantle of protection. When you go into your room to be quiet, to rest, to read, or to do any personal activity that requires concentration, the first thing you do is to close the door and make sure that no one will disturb you during that time. You give the order not to be called or sought for anything, thus it is possible for you to do well what you wish, with peace and tranquility, after having withdrawn into silence and isolated yourself from the disturbing outside. If you do not take such precautions, you will be continually disturbed by conversations, intrusions, noises, telephone calls, interruptions, etc. You will not be able to concentrate on your work, and everything will go wrong. In spiritual matters, it is the same thing. You must take the necessary precautions. First of all, it is advisable to close the door to everything outside that disturbs, and then to withdraw into the silence of the inner self with peace and tranquility, in order to obtain satisfactory results. To close the door to the disturbing and disturbing is to make due protection of the light before quieting down, relaxing, meditating, or practicing contemplation. If someone innocently puts himself in a receptive state without taking due precautions, he exposes himself to disturbing delusions and disturbances that can be avoided by right realization. No one would leave the door of his house open to any intruder passing by, nor would he invite him to enter his house with these or similar words: "Come in, you scoundrels. Come in, you drunkards, sadists, thieves, prostitutes, and people of bad life. Come in." This is inconceivable, for the same thing happens when someone puts himself in a receptive state and, out of ignorance, does not make due protection of the light before relaxing or entering into contemplation. To withdraw into silence means to be at peace with oneself, to calm the human part, to relax and focus the attention on the inner, not allowing anything disturbing or disturbing to come from the outside. You have to be still enough to find that inner silence where all things happen. The protection of light that we advise is the electronic layer of the divine presence I Am, and the electronic circle indicated by beloved Master Saint Germain. It is also necessary to close the doors of our aura to the astral so that nothing inharmonious coming from that dimension comes to disturb. This practice generates a very powerful electronic energy, although invisible, which is like a wall of luminous crystal against which everything annoying and undesirable will collide. We are children of the light, because in it we move, live, and have our being. Every student of metaphysics in the Great Brotherhood of Saint Germain is a direct child of the light and is normally assisted by the masters of the ascended hierarchy, especially by Saint Germain and his twin ray, who in physical life was called Connie Mendez. Light, as supreme power, is in every human heart that beats with self-sustaining life. Light is vital essence, self-conscious energy that produces instantaneous perfection and knows no opposites or opposition, for it always leads to perfection. When light is called into action, all that is imperfect disappears and discordant human creations cannot remain. The light sweeps away all imperfection, dispels all error, restores harmony, and floods with its great power. Purification process. When someone enters a dark and unfamiliar room, he feels ill at ease, uneasy, and fearful, but instantly, if he turns on the light, every shadow disappears and peace comes. So it is in the spiritual, by invoking the light. The lower vanishes and problems are solved. Light constitutes the central point of life everywhere. It is the radiant center of every atom that forms the physical body, for which perfection is always within as essence and power. But then, the discordant human qualification of thought-feeling forms around that pure point of light as a dense cloud of imperfection that grows and overshadows the living. Thus is produced the bad, the disturbing that the human being encounters in the course of his days and causes him discomfort, suffering. All that exists is pure light at its core. The discordant is put by man around him due to the misuse of free will. Every individual on earth has a shell of imperfection added to his light and hence the urgent need for purification on a generalized level. Man has been covering himself with dark veils that must now be removed to allow, once again, the light to shine from the inside out. When one bathes, the dirt is removed with soap and water. In the same way, that dirt added to the perfect has to be removed by one's own conscious effort and decision, so that the pure light once again shines in all its splendor and human pain ends. That which they call ugliness, evil, selfishness, and other discordant conditions are added to the perfect original light that is in every being. We are children of the light, and we must not forget it. Therefore, we have the obligation to perform this purification in ourselves as soon as possible. Everything has come out of the light. Light is the universal substance from which all animate and inanimate living forms have emerged. It is the source of all that exists, the supreme force that animates all that is and manifests in the dense plane, in the whole cosmos. Nothing can be or exist unless it emanates from the mighty source, which is the mighty universal and cosmic light. There is only one power capable of moving through all creation, and that is the magna electronic light that exists everywhere and interpenetrates all manifestation. The law of life of the whole universe is the law of light. In light, we are, we exist, and we have our being. Nothing can live outside of light. Negative polarity, called evil, is the absence and lack of light. It always insists on disturbing and produces many disturbances. If the person allows it, opens himself to this influence. This polarity is called sinister force. We prefer to refer to it as the other polarity. Religion speaks of the devil, hell, demons, etc., which are nothing more than entities of the lower astral or disembodied beings of little evolution that disturb and disturb. The astral is the immediate plane to ours, where those who go through the change called death go. It is also called the fourth dimension and has 7 levels. Lesson 21. Listen to the voice within you. Most people do not perceive the voice of their inner God because they have not learned to listen and do not silence what is outside. They live turned towards the noise and bustle of the outside world, with their attention focused on the appearances of the sensory. It goes something like this example. When a young man turns up the radio to dance with his partner and the phone rings in the next room, he doesn't even notice the call, focused as he is on the loud music. To answer the phone, he will have to stop dancing, calm down and fix his attention in another direction. So it is in everyday life. Attention is focused on the external, on what is flashy and impressive, and what is inside is not heard, because it is too faint. However, the inner impulse, inner voice, always remains as the stirring conscience, if one is doing something wrong. Valuable guide. The inner voice is a source of illumination and is a very valuable, very safe guide. Whoever has developed this faculty becomes an achiever and rarely makes mistakes. Some historical figures of the past owed their success to the fact that they listened to their inner voice and took enough time to achieve it. For example, in India, the mystic Gandhi, who managed to free his country from British rule without bloodshed. Thomas Edison, scientist and inventor, received, in the form of surprising meditation, his peculiar ideas. The writer Mark Twain, President Abraham Lincoln, and, further back in time, the young French Joan of Arc. Each person has his or her own technique for perceiving the inner voice, but it takes some practice and experience to get results. What is the inner voice? It is the way our divine presence speaks to us. For this, we must practice contemplation or some efficient type of meditation. It is necessary to temporarily close the doors of the external and enter into silence in order to tune in and hear what comes from within. When the person is blocked by anxiety, anguish, or some negative feeling, no results are obtained, since the necessary relaxation that opens the door to higher perception has not been achieved. Impulses and hunches are the most common way in which the inner voice expresses itself. It is something very subtle, but of great power, if we put it into practice. When you feel the impulse to do something, do it, no matter how absurd it may seem to you. Later, you will see that it is the right and best thing to do. The divine presence has surprising and always more glorious ways than we can imagine. If we give it the command, we will benefit. We already know that truth comes from the heart and does not proceed from logical reasoning or the intellect. When the heart and the brain speak, when examining any problem or personal situation, it is better to give preference to what we feel and not to what we think, because the heart is the sure guide to avoid mistakes and failures. Truth and accurate understanding come from within in such cases, as a sublime idea, an intuitive flash of lightning, because intuition is the voice of the divine presence, that is, the voice of God. His divine presence speaks to everyone, because intuition, impulses and hunches, everyone has them and has perceived them at some point in their lives. However, few are those who pay attention to these things. Ordinary people, without great spiritual development, dismiss their hunches as foolish and meaningless. That is why there are so many failures and mistakes in the world. When the individual is very materialist and blocked, his intuition is almost imperceptible, except on rare occasions. This type of perception arises at any time in daily life, and there is no need to seek such a sublime response through contemplation. When the person makes the conscious effort to enter in contact with his divine presence, dedicating a certain time daily to contemplation, it happens that the communication opens and the channel widens little by little. The most beautiful experiences are possible for those who persevere in this practice, but we must warn the following. Do not expect surprising phenomena nor unusual things, nor believe that a voice will speak to you like the one you and I have when we communicate with others. The voice is generally perceived without sound and in your own brain. It is sort of telepathic and so without phenomenology that it seems to you as if it were your own thoughts. When you ask a question to your divine presence about some personal problem or situation, and then go into the silence through meditation, the first idea that arises is usually the right one if it brings us happiness. That's it, we say. I've found it. This is what I was looking for. I give you this fact. Nothing that produces discomfort, doubt, restlessness, and uneasiness comes from the presence, nor is it the right answer. Not always the solution that is of interest comes during contemplation and meditation. Then, if nothing comes, the matter should be dropped. It will happen that, at any time of the day, while we are going about our business, understanding will come, and we will know with certainty what to do. The technique of quieting down, asking the question, and then letting go is very good at all times. Hearing voices. Voice is not the same as voices. Generally, voices are heard as a whisper in your ear, and you feel that they want to tell you something. Pay no attention to that which is of a lower order and does not suit you at all, for it is interference from the astral that comes to disturb you. This can happen because you have not yet learned to protect yourself with the light and the electronic belt, safe defenses against everything of a lower order that disturbs. It also happens to people who are very interested in the psychic and therefore give it entry into their world. Likewise, when someone falls into sadness and depression, if he is ignorant and does not practice the spiritual, he can hear voices of those, in case he is a very sensitive being, with certain innate faculties of perception. In no case it is convenient to hear voices. They are annoying beings that spiritualists call detractors, spirits. They are disincarnated, who are in the astral plane, waiting for a new reincarnation, and are of medium or low evolution. What you have to do is to reject that immediately, invoke the divine presence into action, and do the due protection of light. Do not give it importance or be frightened, because it is not worth it. There are few who hear voices. We advise you to get out of clairvoyance and leave it forever. Do not be interested in card casting, witchcraft, or anything else that produces vibrational affinity with these types of experiences. Lesson 22. Overcome life's obstacles. Do not allow yourselves to be interfered with. A warning must be given to sincere students of the light who initiate the effort of spiritual overcoming, and to those who join after times of passivity and disorientation. When one arrives at the Saint Germain Brotherhood, one has already found the last step, and before, in other lives, one has traveled the previous steps that exist on the planet, from one religion to another, from one philosophical system or esoteric school to another. By right of conscience and by the law of cause and effect, each one arrives at the place that corresponds to him. But then, the thing is serious. If one does not know how to sustain his purpose and allows himself to be interfered with by the external conditions which commonly arise, he will lose the opportunity. In such cases, the student withdraws from practical instruction, ceases to attend classes, and the effluvia of the world attacks him again. For there are but two alternatives: either hold on to the light or hold on to the problems, and he sinks back into the confusion of persons asleep in unconsciousness. It is common to see how very interested students begin to miss class for one reason or another. For example, a person arrives unexpectedly to visit, someone gets sick, there are fights at home and they get in a bad mood, they are invited to a party. They have to run an errand, solve this or that matter. They say they feel tired from work or any other activity, etc., all of which seems more important to them at the moment, and they leave the light for another day. Thus they gradually drift away until they no longer remember and lose motivation, become cold, and the impulse that led them to attend the talks weakens. The most are the ones who stay. But why do some of them fail? There is a reason. These students who let their interest weaken do not realize that they are being interfered to leave the spiritual path and continue giving power to the external things of the world, which distract, alienate, enslave, and impede the advancement of external evolution. We should not give power to the external, because the human being is superior to the external conditions and can dominate them. What happens is that he does not know it, and, for that reason, he fixes his attention on what disturbs him, giving it power instead of dissolving it. He who allows the external to interfere in his life and devotees himself first to solve the problems, the things of the world, leaving the spiritual for later, will remain with his problems and difficulties. Therefore, he will not be able to get out of them. The technique is the other way around. Attend to the spiritual first, and everything else will come later. This means that things will be easily solved, for the spiritual, with the right knowledge, overcomes unhappy situations, however great they may appear to be. When some difficulty interferes to prevent attendance at lectures, the student should say, "Light first, then problems." Go to your lectures calmly, and you will see how everything will be well settled after you have proceeded correctly and have made due treatments to cut through the interference that is manifesting. There is no valuable achievement in life that does not require effort, perseverance, discipline, and willpower. What is easily acquired fades away and does not last. It is necessary to value this teaching and what is being received. Otherwise it will be lost, and it will not be easy to find it again. The reason for the interferences. There are two important causes in this situation. First, we are in times of change and transformation because the planet is advancing, accelerating towards its initiation, and all the inferior conditions that have kept it submerged in backwardness and suffering are being transmuted, eliminated. It is known that now ends a great cycle of 14,000 years, which is something very special in the history of human evolution. The great cosmic wheel begins again with another 14,000 years, and everything low and imperfect is going to be eliminated. We are living difficult times of transmutation towards perfection that will manifest in much better conditions from the year 2000. But at present, there is a strong struggle between good and evil, between the positive and the negative, since the inferior puts up a lot of resistance and refuses to withdraw definitively. The other polarity, sinister force, defends itself tooth and nail in order not to be expelled from the planet, for it knows that this is its last battle. It works in a very subtle way and uses human beings who serve it unconsciously or consciously. They are forces launched from the fourth dimension, astral plane, egregores or mental creations and suggestions. Their tactics are varied, and when they see that someone reaches more light than usual, they try to prevent it. This is not even perceived because there are very few who know about these things. People interested in witchcraft, psychism, spiritualism, Santeria, etc. are easy instruments of the lower astral and become entangled in this plot that disturbs their own lives and the lives of others. The other polarity tries to alienate the sincere student. It is common for it to try to interfere with him, but if he is forewarned, none of this has any power. Second reason. The second important reason is the opposition of one's own personality, or lower self, human self, which fears to lose all its power, the demon it has had for so many centuries, to direct the life of the incarnated person on earth. Entering a higher path of light, where time is no longer wasted, the personality knows it is in danger of being liquidated and opposes it with all its might. One of its tactics is to distract and alienate the student and prevent him from attending the talks. Once the student enters into this teaching, he begins to give the command to the divine presence, or higher self, to rise up and come out of the lower. Then the personality becomes frightened. There are also other minor interferences arising from lack of perseverance, lack of willpower, and lack of discipline. The student is still weak spiritually and must strengthen himself lest he lose the treasure he has found. If he does not value it, the law will send him away to learn a lesson. Generally, then, he returns to suffer again and plunges back into what he had left behind. It is not possible to go backward spiritually, but stagnations occur and stop you in your tracks. Spiritual evolution is like climbing a mountain. Whoever stops to contemplate the beauty of the landscape, the running of the water, and the singing of the birds, does not go as straight to his goal as one who continues without interruption all the way. One must be alert and not allow any interference to paralyze or impede the great goal. Lesson 23. Teaching of the Higher Planes of Light. Metaphysics. The instruction currently given by the Saint Germain Brotherhood, popularized and expanded by Connie Mendez in its most fundamental bases, comes directly from the planes of light, octave, where the ascended masters of the White Brotherhood dwell, and mainly has been dictated by the ascended master Saint Germain, to whom this special work corresponds because he is the avatar of the new era. Since the year 1954, When the so-called era of Aquarius began, Saint Germain imparts his instruction to raise the consciousness of the children of the earth. But long before, in 1945, and through Connie Mendes, Joan Mary of the Immaculate Concept. As the Masters of Light called her, this beloved master projected to the physical plane a profound and simple teaching, Christian metaphysics of high level, supported and sponsored by all the other masters of the white hierarchy. The reason for this privilege is due to the fact that it corresponds to Saint Germain to govern the spiritual destiny of the earth during the next 2,000 years, since the planet is governed by cosmic cycles of 2,000 years each, under the direction of one master of wisdom at a time. In the previous 2,000 years, Piscean Age, the responsibility for Earth evolution was in charge of the Master Jesus, who imparted the knowledge currently called Christianity. But, as everything has to continue in an upward spiral, Saint Germain is in charge of the continuation in the violet ray age that has already begun. The metaphysical teaching that we are imparting does not rest only in the wonderful books written by Connie Mendes, but it has also been arriving gradually, dictated by the same masters of wisdom that form the White Brotherhood, and through channels. The channels are sensitive people of high spiritual evolution who serve as transmitters of knowledge when they are properly trained and protected. Connie Mendes laid the foundations of the movement when, in 1945, she spiritually founded the Saint Germain Brotherhood in the city of Caracas. But for a long time, she had been working for the expansion of this teaching through talks, conferences, training of guides, and personal supervision of the work. Always, the masters have spoken through channels, and mainly Saint Germain, Master Jesus, since both masters are united in the great work. Before Master Jesus and in the age of Aries, to impart the teaching and raise the level of the masses, corresponded Moses, whose influence also extended for 2,000 years. There is nothing psychic. We warn that this way of receiving is nothing like Spiritism, because it is something more superior. The channels are not mediums, for they do not fall into a trance, they do not lose consciousness, nor do they come into contact with the astral plane at all, but with the higher planes of the eighth light of the ascended masters. Therefore, there is nothing psychic in this work, nor any violation of the sacred law of free will. Always, Saint Germain watches over and supervises his work, so to speak, in the company of the one who in life was called Connie Mendes, the work of Connie Mendes. This work has borne ample fruit, and the harvest has already grown very large. Each person who has in his hands one of these books, so extraordinary and simple, receives as a jolt in his whole being, by the high vibration that these books contain, and begins to awaken spiritually. Then, by the law of vibration, he places himself in the continuation of the movement to realize and practice the teaching in daily life, as well as to expand his level even more. Connie Mendes's books are seeds thrown into the world that always bear fruit. Connie's work was perfectly directed. She came to the world with a specific mission to be fulfilled for South America and the planet in general, to impart, expand, and popularize, at a deep and simple level, the teaching of Master Saint Germain. Connie Mendes had as teachers Emmett Fox, founder of the biblical movement called Unity, and Guy Ballard, who popularized the teaching of Master Saint Germain based on the use of the sacred name I Am and the magical violet flame of transmutation. Regarding Emmett Fox, he went further than this master, in the sense that he flew higher and extended beyond the biblical beginnings, since Unity only accepts Master Jesus and does not recognize the ascended masters of the White Brotherhood. Subsequently, Connie Mendes made contact with the Prince Bridge of Freedom, who recognized Master Saint Germain as Avatar of the New Age. At this point in the United States, direct instruction was received from Saint Germain and all the ascended masters prior to the Saint Germain movement, founded in Caracas, Saint Germain Brotherhood. The purpose of the masters of the ascended hierarchy was to unite North and South America into a single spiritual block to uplift the earth on her path to her rightful ascension. When the teaching was solidly established, Connie Mendes received direct instruction from Master Saint Germain for 2 consecutive years without intermediaries, for he had already reconquered his esoteric abilities and his extrasensory sensitivity. Then, the master sealed her chakras to defend her from the vibrations of the psychic plane, astral world, and to avoid any external danger, as well as interferences from her own personality, from disincarnates, suggestionists and telepaths, etc. This precaution applies to all persons destined for specific missions on the human plane. In this way, they are duly protected from any unnecessary disturbance. As for the more distant origins of this teaching, Connie Mendez recalls the esoteric wisdom of Enoch, who was the father of Methuselah and ascended to the planes of light in remote times. Of the 42 lost volumes he wrote, there remain the remains of a very ancient book, discovered in England by an English archbishop, from which is derived the knowledge of the 7 laws that govern the universe, mainly the law of mentalism. Connie calls Enoch father of metaphysics. He was known by different names: Hermes Trismegistus in Greece, Thoth in Egypt, and Cadmus in Phoenicia. Lesson 24. I practice inner silence, outer silence. If silence means to be silent on the outside, to control the power of the word in order to speak well and correctly is a very praiseworthy virtue, because you know that the word is a powerful decree that is always manifested externally. You give an order that has to be carried out. As for the control of the word in situations of violence, we advise you the following. Instead of insulting another, proceeding in an outburst that will later weigh you down, breathe deeply once or twice. In this way you will achieve due self-control, and then your words will not come out in anger. It is not convenient at all, such an attitude of anger, because that misqualified energy, poisoned, so to speak, will return to you multiplied, creating serious problems, mainly of health. There are many types of silences with respect to external conditions: shutting up out of indifference, slackness, fear, or disgrace. When something should be said benefits no one and entails what is commonly called sin of omission. This sin means that one should have intervened to clarify something, to push a situation in a positive way, to defend someone, and did not do it, because he remained silent and therefore left for himself a karmic debt written in the book of his life for the future. Someday, and when it hurts the most, someone will not defend him and he will be ignored. Moreover, before the karmic tribunal and at the end of his physical life, he will have to account for all his errors of omission. Keeping silent out of self-interest and selfishness does not help either. If one benefits by keeping silent and gains materially, this silence will one day turn against oneself. To be silent for lack of sincerity and sufficient courage to put things in their place is detrimental to all. It is the cowardice of the weak and irresolute who never face their difficulties and so shy away from them, increasing them. Shut up so as not to lie is more dignified and discreet. It can be accepted, as it indicates their self-control and good feelings. But they say that he who keeps silent gives, so they will immediately say yes to this silence. Silence for wisdom and prudence. It is a type of silence highly recommended, since it is not convenient to comment with other people. The things you are going to do or want to do, for the following reasons: doubts, fears, insecurity, negativity, and skepticism of others. What they say about your project, if it is wrapped in negative comments, will harm you enormously, hindering the realization of things, influencing your mood, and possibly pushing away what you wanted to do so much. Therefore, a discreet silence is recommended until everything has fully manifested, and be very firm, so as not to be disappointed with what they say. These sayings of others annoy, hinder, and paralyze the action, because other comments are always added that add fuel to the fire. Silence about our beliefs before other people who are not interested in this path and cannot understand it. This avoids mockery, sarcasm, verbal aggressions, fears, and other negative feelings that are not convenient to contact. We never preach metaphysics, nor do we go around shoving these truths through anyone's eyes, since people come to us by vibrational affinity, and we do not have to look for them. They look for us. We only give information when they sincerely ask for it and show true interest, because many are not ready yet. This teaching is the highest teaching the planet has, and not everyone can understand it. Most, are not even interested. It is necessary to be silent in order to learn to listen. Not everyone knows how to listen because they do not have enough patience or because they think they are more important and better. The one who is silent and listens obtains many benefits, because the other who runs over his words leaves without knowing it, his soul naked, and says everything without wanting to. In addition to valuable information, one acquires a certain wisdom if one lets others speak. He who speaks much and boasts achieves little and generally deceives by exaggerating. If words could materialize, we would say that words are gold and silence is silver, as a well-known saying goes. To be silent to control. Criticism is the most advisable thing to do, because a metaphysician cannot and should not be in that, knowing the truth about such a situation. Whoever criticizes will be criticized. Besides, the negative energy that he generates, besides harming the other, will disturb him again according to the law of the circle that says, everything returns to the origin from where it was created. Nothing and no one escapes this law. If a metaphysician enters surprisingly in a place where they are criticizing, first, he will remain silent and will not participate in the conversation. Second, he will try to remain serene and in peace, and that these things do not disturb him. Third, he will rise above the condition by means of a decree or metaphysical treatment like this: I do not accept this for me or for them, because it is not the truth. I remain serenely at peace. I invoke the law of forgiveness and the violet transmuting flame to dissolve this misqualified energy. I remain serenely at peace. I am the divine order here, and none of this disturbs me. Beloved presence, strengthen me, thank you. It may happen that, in spite of this, you do not control yourself because you are very new on this path. If you become nervous and restless, if you don't know what to do, the best thing to do is to leave the field and leave politely, leaving the criticism where it was. Otherwise, you will get a headache and feel bad because you are no longer in vibrational affinity with those people. Those who show true evolution are known by the correct use of the word. There are people who boast of being very wise philosophically, but speak disastrously and do not understand or have not realized the law of mentalism. We already know that whoever does not know or practice the law of mentalism does not advance a single step on the spiritual or material path. He only succeeds in stuffing his intellect with external or internal knowledge, which he does not use, and remains stagnant at its basis. The intellect is only a data file, a servant, and will never be a master if we want to advance spiritually. We must not give it too much power. Lesson 25. I calm down and enter into my inner silence. Inner silence is very necessary to advance on the path of one's own spiritual realization. We must learn to be quiet, to relax, and to silence the thought of things outside that shout so much and demand so much attention. In this way, in the stillness of the physical self, self-controlling thoughts and feeling at peace, we will begin to perceive the truth that is within. Thus, contact is established with the divine power. The noise and din of what is outside keeps people asleep in unconsciousness, caught in the delusion of the senses and of material attainment, so that they are blind that they do not see, and deaf that they do not see. They are blind who do not see and deaf who do not hear. Their values are distorted and collapse soon sometimes, giving a hard blow to the human part in an attempt to make it react. We already know that it is necessary to dedicate, daily, a certain time to the practice of contemplation, even if it is 10 minutes at least, to learn to enter into silence, from where one will come out strengthened in health, vitality, and greater understanding of things. Within is the power and true knowledge, the prodigious source to solve any situation, problem, or need. Knowing how to calm down and remain serene in critical moments of difficulties and shocks is a magic key to success, because it opens the doors to the divine energy and power, instead of closing them, as it usually happens when a person gets irritated, explodes in anger, gets upset, restless, nervous, shocked, or pessimistic. What he will get then is to charge himself with black energy, as poisoned, and act like a magnet to attract on himself all the bad, the disturbing that will bother him. Whoever wants to free himself from suffering and live happily must control himself and maintain peace. The stillness of the human being when entering into silence is not a fruitless passivity on the outside, since one is not going to spend hours meditating. He will only go to the source to seek understanding, power and strength, to contact the Father, Divine Presence I Am, instead of resorting only to external help when he wants to solve his difficulties. Once he has contacted the inner power, he will turn to the outside to resolve his issues and live with greater well-being. For the outside is also necessary, since in the world we are there to act and learn. In the silence of the interior, all the answers come and a guide is obtained. That avoids making mistakes, falling into serious difficulties and errors. Inspiration. Do painters, musicians, writers and artists know that their inner God, higher self, directs them towards perfect achievement by means of the so-called inspiration? This is a way to enter into silence, to learn to listen to the inner voice without the need of words. But for this, peace is necessary, to have harmony of feelings. Any external discord, displeasure or problem cuts off communication with the Divine Master, I Am, or individual Father. When a painter, writer or artist is determined to create beauty only with his human part and the effort of his outer will, closing himself to what is inside, the result is very poor, very mediocre, because only the inner power is capable of creating what is superior, what is really worthwhile. If you read a book, you have to enter into silence to know what it says. In the same way, if you want to hear your inner Christ Divine Presence to contact his power for your own benefit, you have to go into silence, to silence your human part, so that it does not disturb and let you hear. Learn to be alone. Not everyone knows how to be alone, to find the stillness to read, listen to music, meditate or create. For many people, feeling physically alone is annoying and unbearable, so they continually seek the company of others. There are also those who are very lonely, always closed in on themselves and therefore shy away from others. Extremes are never good because they unbalance the balance of peace. The best is the middle ground. Live in society with normality, but also look for certain moments to be alone with well-being and joy. Learning to listen to oneself without falling into recriminations or censures towards oneself is very good. Also, it is necessary to know how to isolate oneself, to meditate in any place centered on the internal without being disturbed by the noise of the outside. Placing yourself in the divine press, making a call to his power, is a magnificent and brief meditation, even if you are in the street, at work, on the bus, or anywhere. Contact with nature. To go out one day of rest to the song, to the mountain, and to feel their relaxed calm is a good therapy on the way to find oneself and to find peace. Do not look, in this case, for noisy places like crowded beaches, where music is played loudly through loudspeakers and personal radios are left everywhere. In these places there is no real silence. In addition, sun that is too strong for tanning, received from the front and in a passive way, makes the body work too hard to protect itself or causes health problems. It is better to receive the sun in a gentle way, between the branches of trees while walking, rather than holding its powerful rays. The silence of nature helps to meditate and puts in contact with the superior in an easy way. In these quiet places in the countryside and mountains, there is no interference and everything leads gently into the silence of the inner, spiritual experiences. It is good to keep silent about these experiences to outsiders who do not understand and are not interested in them. An exception can be made in conversations to strengthen others and to give confidence in the truth of the teaching. Each person has his own experiences, which are never equal to those of others, so that comparison could disenchant or cause one to mistrust oneself. Doubts of other minds, even if silent, are of no benefit either. Let us know how to be silent on the path of our own spiritual realization. Lesson 26. Forgiveness and Forgetfulness. Generally, the concept of forgiveness is a religious principle of good morals infiltrated in the minds to behave well, but this is insufficient in practice. Religion says to forgive and does not teach the reasons and why, so it is rarely practiced. It is not very convincing to say that we must forgive, just because, since human nature in itself is very resistant to it when, in something, it has been wronged. However, it is true. We must forgive not just because, but to free ourselves from calamities and misfortunes. The reasons to forgive are many, and without a doubt, very beneficial. You will forgive. There are people who, after having been hurt, insulted or wronged, remain in a vengeful, resentful and ill-willed attitude towards others, constantly remembering what was done to them. Since they have not forgiven, they are continually tormented by the idea of returning the evil received, believing that taking revenge is the most just and right thing to do. However, this mental attitude of returning evil for evil in equal measure greatly disturbs life, steals inner peace, causes great discomfort, irritates, unsettles, and can even trigger serious illness. This happens because energy qualified in hatred, irritability, and violence always returns to its source, wreaking havoc in one's own body, business, and personal affairs. It will never go well in life for one who harbors a feeling of resentment and ill will toward others, regardless of the causes, just or unjust in this. There is no possibility of avoiding this unless one changes one's mental attitude and, through self-conscious forgiveness, diverts the return current of negative energy. When one sincerely forgives and the feeling is at peace, one avoids the personal catastrophes that come silently. It is not enough to renounce revenge, resentment, and remain in an indifferent and passive attitude, because it is necessary to burn the hornet's nest that one has created and scare the wasps away so that they disperse as far as possible. None of this can be done without true and authentic forgiveness, not only silent, but also express it to the one who feels the enmity. Don't be afraid of me anymore. You have to tell him, I forgive what you did to me not only because of you, but also because it is good for me. I know that it is not good for me to hate. Forgiveness includes not only serious things, but also small offenses and common annoyances. One should always forgive for this very reason, because this attitude is of great benefit to him. If you say to another, you will pay for it, and put it into practice, you do not know what misfortunes and misfortunes will befall you. Moreover, you poison yourself mentally and fill yourself with uncontrolled rage, with continual startling, by which you open the door to entities of the lower astral who can influence you to disturb you and make things even worse. Every human being must learn to love at all costs. This is the lesson that the Master Jesus came to teach almost 2,000 years ago, and still very few have understood it. If you move in the field of the inferior and destructive, that same destruction you wish for others will fall upon you to teach you to keep your feelings in harmony, and not to wish for others what you do not want to happen to you. You know that man is now a creator, and must learn to control, in the good, all this tremendous potential. The bad only comes as a consequence of ignorance. He who knows does not violate the laws that govern life, does not fall into abysses. Forgiveness opens the doors of inner power and makes it possible for the Father to assist you, divine Christ presence, to elevate your life and your personal world. Without forgetting, no forgiveness is possible. Many sincerely believe they have forgiven and say so, but then they spend time remembering in detail what others did to them in the past or present. If that detailed recollection persists, it is evident that they have not known how to forgive, because true forgiveness carries with it the forgetting of grievances and injustices, of all that is the cause of hatred and resentment. If someone says, I forgive, but I do not forget what has been done to me, he is only making a play on words, because then no forgiveness can be manifested. The benefits of forgiveness. Forgiveness benefits more the one who gives it than the one who receives it, because the hated one is sometimes not even interested in being forgiven, while the one who forgives obtains the greatest advantages, which are the following. He improves his health, puts his life in peace, harmonizes his feelings, and finds tranquility. He also frees himself from suffering, from falling into problems and difficulties, and frees himself from a future karma that will torment him later on. He lightens his emotional burden and feels relieved, because discontent and ill will towards others make life bitter. For all this, he recovers joy and well-being, and also closes the doors to entities of the lower astral that before could bother him by putting himself in a vibratory tone in tune with them, and although unconsciously, he ignores it. the one who hates and has ill will towards others, the one who wants to take revenge with this "I'm going to pay" generates bad vibrations and rushes into the abyss of bad luck, health problems, family, business, etc. Since all the hatred is returned in suffering. There are people who have become paralyzed by so much hatred, Parkinson's disease. By disturbing their own health so much, they walk faster towards the change called death, unless they avoid it in time. It is necessary to learn to forgive, because it is not easy, and it is one of the most serious experiences facing human life. It must not be an act forced or imposed by others, by principles and dogmas, but a gesture of one's own, freely expressed decision and understanding. Lesson 27. I understand and practice higher consciousness. Elevating thought. In order to free oneself quickly from problems and difficulties, it is necessary to understand things in an elevated way, which will give the necessary tolerance to forgive and be at peace. From below and looking at situations closely, everything is small and a clash of opinions or actions may occur. Always have to go up, to have a wider horizon before your eyes, and, thus, to be able to understand things better. When one climbs a tower, a mountain, or looks down from an airplane, one realizes the immense panorama that can be seen from there, and the higher one climbs, the wider one finds it. It is the same with the realities of life, which are better understood and more easily resolved if one knows how to elevate the thought feeling with a higher understanding. In the difficult situation of forgiving those who have offended or wronged us, this higher understanding is more necessary. But he who is a student of metaphysics has the knowledge that raises him to a higher form of understanding and realization, for truth frees you from all that is lower, and if anyone has offended, hurt, or wronged you, think that this has occurred by ignorance and because the evolutionary level of that person does not allow him to go beyond. As you know, there is the law of cause and effect, by which each one reaps what he gives to others. Therefore, one should not worry too much about what others do, but try to do well with one's own life, because only one's own actions will have to be accounted for before the karmatic court at the end of one's material existence. To avoid hatred and criticism of others, it is better to think like this: what you do and how you behave is not my business, that is your business. About true forgiveness, the most important thing is to feel it and to realize it internally. If it is not easy to express it in words to the person you forgave, or you cannot, do not worry too much, because it is enough to feel it, and thus you have already freed yourselves from the burden by which it worked, not getting on the same level. In conflicting situations of problems and difficulties with others, you have to avoid frontal confrontations, because it is not convenient to respond insult for insult and blow for blow. Whoever puts himself on the same level as the inferior is always very prejudiced. Imagine what it would be like to stand in the middle of the field with open arms to face a herd of wild horses in violent race. One would be left on the ground all bruised, kicked and seriously injured, if not killed. Instead of proceeding in this way, it would be wiser to climb a tree and, from the height of its branches, witness how the wild horses pass by, devastating everything, without suffering any damage to the one who is a spectator and has been able to protect himself. Evil is a destructive, dark, and dense energy that hits and liquidates everything in its path. It is necessary to stop that current and let it pass quietly below, for which it is enough to elevate the thought by means of some decree or metaphysical treatment. One must be serene, not uncontrolled. Then say, I do not accept this because it is not truth. I do not want it or care for it, and I rise above this condition. Beloved presence, I call you here to action and invoke the divine order to manifest thank you. Forgive yourself. This is very important to live in peace and not to fall into difficulties. If one makes mistakes and commits errors, why accuse and recriminate oneself? Forgive, yes, oneself on every occasion, without remorse or recriminations of any kind. Never call yourself a fool, stupid, imbecile, or any of those things that many people often say to themselves. What an imbecile I am! What an animal! Beware that I am a brute, and others. All this is engraved in the subconscious and will return as a reflex when you least expect it, with serious consequences, because you will behave in that way on any occasion without being able to control it. A feeling of self-pity or pity towards yourself is not good either, because it weakens and diminishes without fixing things at all. Cleanly, reason your mistake and transfer it with violet flame. Without guilt, complexes or recriminations. All that is not convenient. The law of forgiveness. This law has been put at our service to solve, well and perfectly, any problem or unpleasant situation, past or present, from which we want to get out. If the law of forgiveness is not invoked, nothing can be fixed positively, since forgiveness of all the mistakes we have made is necessary to receive the necessary assistance from the divine presence and the ascended master planes of light that help us. After invoking the law of forgiveness, the violet consuming flame is called upon so that this mighty energy transmutes and changes, in a positive way, all that disturbs. Saint Germain's great love for this planet and the law of universal mercy have allowed this to happen quickly as a powerful help to regenerate this world of calamities and misfortunes created by failure and ignorance, by the misuse of life and personal free will. Whoever invokes the law of forgiveness and the violet flame with tenacity and perseverance can consume all the errors, the bad creations of the past, and be free. A broad vision of things. To look at things with narrowness and limitation, sticking to them, creates mistakes and problems because closed-mindedness obstructs the clear vision. It is necessary to leave aside the personalistic passion and observe things from above with objectivity. Whoever lives too close to others and trusts them too much ends up abusing them without realizing it. If you only look at an ant, you will never be able to understand an elephant because of myopia. But if you look from the back of an elephant, you may no longer be interested in any ant because the small has lost value and you ignore it. Remember that understanding comes after the broad view of things, and that without understanding there can be no forgiveness. Much suffering and hardship can be avoided by that broad understanding, which gives the superiority of knowledge. Lesson 28. The happiness in me is not the same for all. In the transitory world in which we live, there is no clear and definite concept of what happiness is, for, while some believe that it lies in certain conditions of economic well-being and family peace, others consider that falling in love and marrying the beloved person constitutes the fullest happiness that this world can offer. For a child, happiness may lie in getting the favorite toy he or she has longed for, but for an adult, the reasons for happiness are not so easy and are very different. A politician will see happiness in gaining power in a high and important position. For those who suffer from scarcity, happiness consists in having money and becoming rich. Some women want to be beautiful and to be admired. Many seek their perfect love, etc. For all these reasons, we see that what we call happiness has many nuances and forms, since what gives happiness to some people, to others it does not even interest them. Man seeks happiness because there is an inner longing for elevation and perfection. As he is always mistaken in believing that everything is outside, he experiences in his constant search through the external. Money, sex and emotions, power, fun, having prestige and fame, standing out, dominating, imposing himself on others, reaching positions and honors, being admired and acquiring material goods, etc. Again and again he sees how illusory and ephemeral this type of happiness is, and sees that, after reaching it, he may cease to be interested in what seemed to be the supreme happiness. Where is happiness? There are many forms in the appearance of that which they call happiness. Those who look for it outside, in transitory material, things like a house, a car, a bank account, etc., do not manage to catch it but fleetingly, because the outside world is very changeable and illusory. After having achieved what they desired so much, and to which they dedicated innumerable efforts, it can happen that one gets tired, loses interest, and forgets it, because happiness is not in the external material. You can get a lot of money, but you can also lose it unexpectedly. A fervent love may grow cold and also cease to be interesting. The lasting, in this changing world, is scarce and rare. Everything tends inexorably to perish, for this is the law of dense matter on the physical plane. Happiness is not found in external material emotions and pleasures, because it is an inner state that very few people manage to reach. It is related to peace, balance, and a certain inner advancement. It is provided by the contact with the divine being and with the higher levels of light in a conscious or unconscious way. Also, certain states of pure love and generous selflessness approach this condition which is called happiness. Such is the case of self-sacrificing mothers and wives, of some doctors and teachers very dedicated to their work. He who is well placed in his work, according to his capacities and the desires of his heart, who fulfills his duty well and works with love, thinking of giving more than receiving, enjoys a certain spiritual satisfaction very similar to what can be called happiness on earth. But on the other hand, these people can have setbacks, problems of other kinds in their lives, and not reach full happiness. The search for happiness has many paths. Each person chooses according to his tastes and preferences. The longing to be happy always persists, even if man feels disappointed by the experiences he has had. There does not exist on earth that sublime condition of happiness, but there is a certain well-being that in something approximates and resembles it. It happens this way because this world is a school of the cosmos, where we come to learn in a hard and difficult way and to pay past debts that are pending karmas generated by oneself some time ago. However, by mercy and divine grace, each person passes in his life through some happy conditions that give him strength and encourage him to continue to fulfill the rest of the hard task. Who has not known some spark of that divine well-being that comes with an illusion, an unexpected event, a fulfilled hope? At least once, no one lacks that experience. To attain happiness in its perfect condition, it is necessary to free oneself from all that is inferior, from that wheel of births and deaths with the attainment of ascension to the spiritual planes of light. There, life and activity continue, but at higher levels and in a form so elevated that we cannot even imagine this marvel. When imperfection is overcome, all suffering and limitations disappear. How is it lost? Man is an eternal being made of light and energy. The dense material part that he has to learn to master is what causes unhappiness and all that comes from the lower self or human personality, but above all the misuse of energy and life that creates many sufferings for the future. He who enjoys this happy well-being with selfishness and domineering attitudes, enjoying the situation alone and oppressing others, will then see how short-lived the happiness he had before is. He cannot hold on to it, and it slips away. So it happens, for example, with the man who marries a very beautiful woman and then tyrannizes her with possessive eagerness, considering her his property. She puts up with as much as she can and then runs away. In the same way, the children abandon the domineering and arrogant father as soon as they can, and the family welfare ends. Don't wait. Passive and conformist people rarely feel happy because this condition, generally, must be sought, sowing before a good harvest in order to reap. He who sows winds reaps storms, says a well-known proverb. Therefore, by practicing the eternal present, which is to act well today, we can begin to sow happiness for the days to come. If something surprisingly unhappy comes to us, it comes from a previous unfortunate sowing that may be in past lives or in this very existence of now. With the light of new knowledge and the proper treatments, we can transmute it. We have to learn how to do it. Give thanks. Let us thank God every day for all the gifts and blessings we enjoy. As we usually have them, we do not realize it until we lose them. Many people mourn, suffer, and feel unhappy about what they have lost or what they lack. But then, they can be comforted if they look at what they still have, what they have left, and what they can enjoy. Take paper and pencil to make a list of everything you have. Family, even if there are quarrels. House, even if it's small. Job, even if you haven't got it as well as you would like. Friends, health, etc. Think about how many people there are who lack these things. As you list all that you have, you will realize that you are not so unhappy, and you will begin to be grateful. Give thanks every day. Say, "Thank you, Father, for the benefits I enjoy." Lesson 29. Scientific Prayer by Connie Mendez. The simplest way to pray and ask for what we want so that the Father will give it to us is explained by Connie Mendez in Chapter 5 of her book, Metaphysics Within Everyone's Reach. The infallible formula consists of placing the matters we wish to resolve in the hands of the Father, so that he may resolve them with his infinite wisdom and power. First, we must be clear about what we want, firmness and determination when asking not to change the course of the request, and then want something else because it does not work that way. You have to persist. The correct words of this formula are the following: in harmony for all the world, according to the divine will, under the grace and in a perfect way. But first express your desire well, saying, I want this. In harmony for the whole world, etc. You will do the treatment only once, because it is not necessary that you repeat it more. But every time that comes to your mind the desire to repeat it, say, Thank you, Father, because this is already granted, and I am waiting for it. Erase with the violet flame the recordings of fear and doubt that are within you, for they may prevent your requests from being fulfilled because of lack of faith. If you do things out of curiosity or to see if they work, it will not be effective either. An attitude of joyful expectation is always very good, because it brings joy and hope. You must be alert not to miss opportunities, not to let them pass you by, and to recognize them when they present themselves. You know that you have God in you, who is the divine presence I am, the Father who cares for you from the eternity of the ages. He wants only good and perfection for you, that you live happily, and that you lack nothing. The Father never punishes, not at all. He is always full of love and understanding, wishing you to advance and overcome, and gives you all the help you ask for, because otherwise the great law does not allow it, as a matter of evolution and free will. Lesson 30. The divine order established in me. There is a metaphysical principle of great importance which, if you put it into practice, one after another, will harmonize your life little by little. It is the divine order. The understanding and realization of this truth frees from suffering, takes people out of their problems and difficulties, because by invoking a spiritual law, the lower obeys and accommodates. What is the divine order? Divine order is the harmonious adjustment of all situations to the truth of God, which is perfection itself. Truth, which sets us free, must be felt and practiced in order to live in that truth of the good and perfect, which is the obligation and natural for every metaphysical student of the light. He who realizes the divine order lives in peace and harmony with himself and with others, feels good with his occupation or work, does not feed quarrels or family, work or social discord. He does not suffer from fears, anxieties. He does not look at things tragically or get depressed in the face of setbacks. The divine order is to be at peace with one's children, wife or husband, relatives, friends, and acquaintances. To be in perfect health, not to waste time in useless suffering, for there is much to learn and accomplish. He who devotes himself to weeping becomes paralyzed and stagnates, must be conquered. The divine order is not a passive condition but an active one. It requires decision, willpower, action, and courage to attain it. Divine order is found after having passed through unhappy conditions of disorder, suffering, which are hard and necessary lessons. It is necessary to correct and straighten all that is wrong, that which is error or mistake, that which presents, be it error or mistake. In everything that brings suffering, fear, or commotion, the divine order is not found. Therefore it is necessary to harmonize it. There is the divine order. These are very potent and powerful words. When the divine order is invoked, decreed and felt, demanded for any person or condition, a great power is put into action, and things happen that seem almost magical. We see how everything begins to fit together. It is enough to say, feeling it and with faith, here is the divine order. Whatever happens, no matter how negative or disturbing it may be, do not accept that appearance and decree it. Don't accept that appearance and decree the divine order there. You have to invoke the divine order before any need that you need, and that is manifesting lack, limitation, whether it is lack of money, lack of affection, lack of work, etc. Decree the divine order to calm pains, to protect someone, to start the car if the battery does not respond, before a fight that we are witnessing. If difficulties or problems arise, say, here is divine order. and transform those situations that seem to have no solution. It is necessary to close the mind to the negative, not to accept it, and to declare perfection in everything, because in it is the truth of God. Remember that the divine order does not impose itself alone, nor so quickly at times, because everything has a process for its manifestation. It requires effort and will, determination and perseverance. Think of a house that is all dirty and messy, full of dust. It takes time to clean it, to tidy it up, and this is done with effort and will. If no one cleans the house, it will remain dirty, because everything must be proposed and then done. The divine presence works through us, but we have to decree it and demand it by reason of free will. If your home, work, financial situation, health, or any other aspect of your life is not in alignment with good and perfection, which is truth, begin to decree divine order with faith and determination, starting today. This process of harmonizing things is more or less time-consuming depending on the strength and power you have previously given to the unhappy or unhappy, which is not truth. It is necessary to free oneself. The metaphysics of the Great Brotherhood of Saint Germain teaches liberation from sad and unhappy conditions. He who remains tormented by the negative will of others does not live in truth. It is not good to accept resignation, because God wills, for God always wills for us, the best, the most beautiful, the most harmonious and perfect. It is only man, when he uses free will, energy and life negatively, who falls into misfortune on his own account due to ignorance and overshadows his living. Living in divine order, it is a great blessing to be able to achieve this. We must begin to live in truth, and today is the day. Today. Do not put it off until tomorrow. Any human being, however humble, is part of universal harmony, and there is no divine order in the whole cosmos. It is possible to misuse life, to misuse the vital energy or holy breath, to misuse the free will and the creative powers. But this does not happen, because a very high price must be paid. Translated in suffering and happiness, the divine order always manifests itself when one demands, affirms, and decrees it. The beloved Master Prince, Lord of the divine order, he is an ascended master and dwells in the high spheres of light. You may invoke him to assist you in problems and difficulties requiring divine order. The earth needs divine order. What we ask for ourselves, we must also ask for all humanity. This planet is now living in very chaotic conditions and is in great need of divine order. Let us decree divine order for this world, which is our home. Decreeing divine order for other people can change them little by little, but we should not see their defects or get into their distress. The secret of success consists in maintaining peace so that the disorder and imperfection that we are interested in eliminating may give way.